Well, it's a brand new week, it's a brand new day, and guess what? It's a brand new studio as well, right here. We'll give you a little spin around because we've been up to quite a lot, and guess what, sweetie? It's exciting to be here.
I'm overexcited, elated, and just it fits us, Benjamin.
Okay, all the E words in the dictionary, excited, elated, which one else?
Elevation, you know what I'm talking about?
Okay, we're about to show them some levels.
Yes, let's show them some levels. But welcome, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you first to our new studio and then to the AM show and the start of a brand new week right here on Joy News, your home of independent, fearless, incredible journalism.
Well, let's just give you a feel. In the course of the show, you'll get to know what exactly you can expect in this new studio. I am so excited. The words are not coming. But we'll be telling you about what to expect later on the show, starting, of course, with the news. Sweetie Abochi will be presenting that. And then for the news review, guess what? Both of us will do a team on that. You know how we do.
Yes. But aren't you missing something, Benjamin?
Oh, what's
our
that?
Proverbs. It's still on. It's
the whole feeling is so exciting. Okay, so let's do this. So mine this morning is this: Anoma entua obuada. Anoma entua obuada, which basically means if the bird doesn't fly, it sort of just coils in and relaxes. But in actual sense, it's talking about the fact that nothing ventured, nothing gained. If you just keep yourself in your little corner and think, oh, I'm good, well, poverty, like a thief, like the Bible says, will catch up on you. So get out there, do what you have to, and make the gains you seek. Anomentua obuada. How about you?
How about me, Benjamin? Oba sabala no le no goa amolema. Again, sabala ele no goha amolema. It means that the onion looks tight and close-knit, but it still has some space in there. So in as much as we strive for community and want to be part of groups and society and even the mentality of associative ownership, remember that life is individual. Salvation is individual. So first, you must strive to be a whole person before you depend on other people or before you go out and look for community. That's my proverb for you. Sabala la nogoa amolema.
Okay.
So after the news review with Benjamin and I, we'll get into AM Sports. You know, Muftar Nabil Abdullah will be here in this new studio again to present his segments, bringing you all the latest in the world of sports.
Well, away from sports, they will be serving you the big stories. And Joy News checks have revealed how first-year students of some senior high schools across the country were forced to eat one specific meal, the same thing, for lunch and supper for an entire term due to an acute shortage of food. Now, this we'll be showing you in our latest Hotline documentary titled Empty Plates, the free SHS promise. You would expect that in a plate there would be something, right? Well, empty plates, the free SHS promise, the promise is not promising. Well, it will highlight the grim picture of the quantity and quality of food served to thousands of students on various campuses. We'll be taking a close look at that as we host Deputy Ranking Member on Parliament's Education Committee, Dr. Clement Apak. He'll be here with us today for that all-important interaction. And mind you, on that one, we'll be activating the phone lines. So stick and stay with us and let us know what your situation has been when we have that conversation.
Also coming up on the AM show in our big stories, the National Communication Authority estimates it may take about 5 weeks for the faulty undersea cables to be restored, bringing back stable connection in affected countries. We've all been experiencing the instability in internet and data and even sometimes voice call services. Now, the NCA made this release on Saturday after a meeting with 4 subsea cable landing service providers, that is ACE, Main 1, SAT3 and WAX. How are you coping, though, with this intermittent disruption in internet supply? Do let us know when we open the phone line, and let's see how we're all faring with this.
Oh yeah, but from that mood-dampening situation, we'll be telling you about what over the weekend the Joy Eastern Camp adventure brought to bear. It took place. If you missed it, you missed out, but we'll bring you snippets of that later on the show. And as always, we'd love to hear from you. What's the show without you? So hey, stick and stay. Sweetie will be standing by on that as we take your thoughts. But for now, guess what? We're settling for the news. Up next we're going to deliver it
hot. Welcome aboard the AM show, guys. This is the AM News on the AM Show. Let's begin. Award-winning Ghanaian musician Kwame Eugene sustained injuries on Sunday night after ramming his car into an unarticulated truck. The accident occurred at CP, close to the DSTV office towards the Jolu traffic lights in Accra. It is unclear where the artist was headed, but according to editor of Modern Ghana News portal Emmanuel Ajagwa Burgri, who witnessed the accident, he was behind the musician's car when the accident occurred around 11:30 p.m. Now, the minority in Parliament is asking government to settle debts owed Electricity Company of Ghana by hospitals across the country. ECG has issued a demand notice to some hospitals across the country, including the Komfanochi Teaching Hospital, to settle their debts or be disconnected. Addressing journalists in Parliament, minority spokesperson on health, Kwabena Minta Kando, argued that any such disconnection will be disastrous. Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante has a wrap of events from Parliament.
Several public health facilities across the country owe ECG several millions of Ghana cedis in debt due to their non-payment of their utility bills. The ECG has already served a demand notice on these health facilities, threatening to disconnect them if they do not pay up. The minority says government should step in and pay these debts.
They should put in all necessary steps, including all options listed above, to ensure that no health facility is disconnected from the national grid during this revenue recovery exercise by the ECG. The minority is also of the opinion that government should find other reliable funding mechanisms other than the IGF of health facilities to cover these important expenditure line items.
The minority are concerned that if ECG is to carry out this threat, so many lives will be lost. They also want government to cause an audit into the books of so many hospitals to ascertain whether or not they have enough resources to pay their utility bills or make the necessary budgetary allocations to pay for same. But still in Parliament, it's been 2 days of internet blackout, and so many mobile network operators are unable to provide internet service to their customers. And the minority in Parliament are demanding answers from the Communications Minister. Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, MP for North Tongue, is demanding that Communications Minister is brought before Parliament to answer questions.
To appeal to you, if you can give a ruling that the Honourable Minister, when coming to respond to these questions, should come with a statement on this very important matter of national significance and what the government is doing to help restore normal.
Member of Parliament for Asawasi Muntaka Mubarak says the Communications Minister should not have waited for MPs to make their demand before coming to Parliament to provide answers.
The Speaker, sometimes is worried that our ministers are not being very proactive, because I thought that naturally, having woken up to the challenge of yesterday, the Minister for Communication would naturally come to this House as a matter of course. But
Majority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin is informing MPs that he has already been in touch with the Communications Minister, who has agreed to come to Parliament on Monday to brief MPs on what is a real national security threat.
Meanwhile, I drew her attention to the fact that she is supposed to appear before us on Monday. So, the understanding was that she would come Monday instead and then do all together. So, members be assured that this will be done on Monday, so she'll be here.
Over the past few weeks, there have been several statements on the floor on the death of former members of Parliament and how they struggled in their last days. Members of Parliament have been reigniting the debate that there should be a relook of their conditions of service. Today, the Majority Leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, pressed the Second Deputy Speaker, who presided over the House, to set up a committee to review the conditions of service of members of Parliament.
And we must resolve and make it mandatory for the state to take care of us. It cannot be that we would always come into public service, you leave, and sometimes an MP is seen in public and is wearing slippers, people say you are corrupt. Meanwhile, you don't have anything. Your salary is next to nothing. Mr. Speaker, I was better off in private practice. But
the second deputy speaker will not acquiesce to this demand. According to him, the House Committee of Parliament is already seized with this matter and should not be stampeded into actually making any recommendations. He says later on, if the House Committee makes any recommendations to the House and there's the need to set up a special committee, they will do so. MPs are set to go on break for Easter next week, Wednesday, and already there's a number of key issues that they have to deal with, including the District Assembly's Commons Fund, as well as the allocation to the National Health Insurance Authority. Next week will be quite a big week in Parliament when MPs would have to trash out all these issues before they go on Easter break. Reporting for Joy News, Kweku Asante, Parliament House, Accra.
Kweku Asante there with up-to-date information from Parliament. Now to other stories. The National Democratic Congress's parliamentary candidate for Efutu, James Kofi Annan, has charged members of the NDC not to allow aliens to elect their representatives into Parliament for them. He's accused the governing New Patriotic Party of resorting to votes from neighboring constituencies to win elections. He says his attempt would not be allowed during this year's elections in December. He made the remarks during a solidarity march in the constituency for the 24-hour economy proposed by the flag bearer of the NDC.
The National Democratic Congress on Saturday took over the principal street of Winneba in the Efutu municipality to show their solidarity for the 24-hour economy as proposed by their flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama. According to the parliamentary candidate for the constituency, James Kofi Annan, flagship programs by the current government have failed over the years, hence the need to support the idea of the 24-hour economy.
24-hour economy. This policy is a game changer. We know that over the years, various governments have tried to solve the unemployment problem in this country, but they have not been successful. Today, we have 1.8 million people who are unemployed, jobless in this country. Out of the 1.8 million, we have 1.3 million who are youth. Meanwhile, we have had youth employment programs, we have had JIDA, we have had NYEA, we have had NAPCO, we have had National Service, we have had so many things. And yet unemployment is still very high. It means that all the policy frameworks that have been brought by previous governments have failed. It means that all the solutions that governments have provided have failed, including even the day-to-day activities. There must be an alternative. An alternative is what John Mahama has created and is bringing on board in this country as the 24-hour economy program. That is a game changer to solve all of our unemployment problems in this country.
He alleges the MPP over the years has depended on votes of voters who do not reside or come from the constituency. This phenomenon, he said, would be looked at critically going into the December polls.
I am winning the Efutu seat for the NDC. We all know that those people who come and invade our constituency to vote for the MPP they are not residents of Efutu. They are imported. Deliberately, the MPP has created and recruited at least 200 strong individuals and tasked them each to bring 100 voters from outside of this constituency. That alone makes a minimum of 20,000 to come and vote in this constituency. So, boot for boot, if the constituency members, those who are residents in the constituency, are allowed to vote, the MPP cannot stand the NDC.
He says his utmost priority would be the reconstruction of the Winneba Central Market when elected at the December polls. The Central Regional Chairman for the party, Professor Richard Kofi Asiedu, says the 24-hour economy is the antidote to the joblessness being created by the free SHS policy introduced by the MPP government.
Now, Akufo-Addo says he has brought free SHS. A lot of people have completed the university and they're in the house. So JM is saying that he's coming to give employment to those people. So in this wise, factories will operate in trade-shift system, where the unemployed person can also get a job.
Professor Asiedu again says the NDC does not take the majority leader, Apenyo Makins, serious for coming at their vice presidential candidate, Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman.
For enough of us, we don't see Apenyo Makin as somebody who is serious. Because if you...
description of your running mate.
No, we don't take him serious. You see, we don't take age in assessing somebody's capabilities and competencies. If you are even 35 years and you are wise, and you have wisdom, and you are competent, and you can implement policies to benefit the people, they will give you the nod.
Mustafa Gbande, the Deputy National Secretary for the NDC, has labeled the majority leader, Apenyo Makins, as someone doing the bidding of the LGBTQ community. Peter Senu for Joy News.
All the unemployed youth in this country, we say power to the people.
Moving on, the Global Fund is worried that some 200 containers of HIV antiretroviral drugs, tuberculosis cartridges, malaria test kits, bed nets, and other consumables worth $48 million have been stuck at the Kotoka International Airport since August 2023. This is because government has failed to pay charges to clear them. Most of these consumables are currently running out of supply across the country. Eric Nila Gira is Manager, Health Product Management at the Global Fund and a member of the Global Fund country team for Ghana.
I would really say that we don't understand clearly what has been the major root cause. According to the Minister of Health, the main issues about ECOWAS and African Union levies, which should be paid based on the decisions that were taken by the Parliament in, I think, July this year. But it is clear from our agreement with the government of Ghana that Global Fund does not pay taxes and levies. So this is something which has been unclear to us, and we continue to engage the Minister of Health to see how the situation can be addressed, because the beneficiaries are waiting for these health products, these life-saving products, which have been in the port for several months now. So we really hope that the leadership of this country will be able to address this problem as soon as possible, because not only we have issues around availability of health products, which translate into stockouts, but at the same time we are a big issue of expiry, because some of these products have shelf life. I mean, 2 months, 3 months, 2 years, 3 years of shelf life, and they've already spent 1 year in the port.
What's the monetary value?
The money that it's about it was around 40 million US dollars. Now it has reduced. I don't have the figure, but it's around between 35 and 40 million US dollars.
Now, CATS International wants relevant stakeholders to make a conscious effort to pass the Consumer Protection Bill into law. The group argues it's about time Ghana gets consumer protection law to protect the rights of consumers. Apia Kusi Adomako is the Executive Director for CATS International West Africa Center.
The bill needs to get to Parliament from the Ministry of Trade, or Parliament has to work on it. But when those institutions that are tasked to get the bill into law are not doing their work, or when they are dragging their feet, that means that you are not going to get the bill. And I can also say that I would say that there has not been seriousness attached to this particular bill, because a bill that it was started in 2006, almost 18 years, the bill is still not in a final shape to go to Parliament, and it's a clear indication that whoever is working on it is not serious.
More than 450 underprivileged Muslim families in the Ashanti region have received food donations for the holy month of Ramadan. The support from Direct Aid Society is in response to a need assessment conducted in the Muslim community. Beneficiaries who received rice, cooking oil, tomato paste, among others, as part of the Ramadan package, beamed with smiles as they left the venue to usher them into the fasting period. There's more in this report.
This year's Muslim holy month of Ramadan, a fasting period started on March 10, 2024. It is a period noted for the show of love and compassion toward the poor and needy in society. The current economic hardships in the country mean many families are denied the opportunity to partake in and fully adhere to the tenets of Ramadan. Hundreds of underprivileged Muslim families, including women and children, besieged the Kumasi offices of the Direct Aid Society, a charitable organization, to receive free food packages. The packages were from the benevolence of the donors of the Direct Aid Society.
How the system here is very, very hard for us. Sometimes having 3 square meals or even meals that we use for the Ramadan activities is very, very, very difficult. Even not for the people that are joining me here to receive this. You might have think that you will get something to do the fasting by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then you have this one as also a bonus to it. It beefs up your let's see, your space and your horizon.
للمسلمين جميعا وجزاهم الله خيرا وجزا كذلك المتبرعين والمتبرعات وبارك الله في أسرهم والسلام عليكم.
Director of the Direct Aid Society in Kumasi, Anas Dawood, tells Joy News the gesture forms part of the Islamic duties being carried out by the society.
2024, we are distribute around 400 food coupons to needy families in our community as a part of our Ramadan program. So we are praying to Allah to help us, support us, to can do more and more for these communities. And we are praying to Allah to help and support all the donors which they help us to do all these programs. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen.
The Direct Aid Society, which operates in all African countries, was first established in Ghana in 2021. It provides deprived communities with free clinics, boreholes and classroom blocks. It has the vulnerable in society at the center of its operation, with an emphasis on charity and compassion towards those who are in need. It operates an orphanage, which currently has 150 inmates in Kumasi. It runs basic and secondary cycle schools. Reporting for Joy News, Clinton Yeboah.
On that note, we wrap up for the AM News. Up next is the news review. Benjamin and I are back in a jiffy. You want to stay with us. Thank you.
Welcome aboard. It's time now for the news review in our new studio. We're taking a bow here. Yeah. Anyway, so right before we get into the segment, this segment always brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And what are they offering you? As always, they're offering you prostate screening for free if you're a man, fertility screening for free if you're a woman. Now, here's where you can reach out to them. Here in a crowd, they can be located at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. There's Kumasi, Kronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrade Anaji Estate. There's Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Isiamanzama. If you'd like to give them a call, which I suggest you do, just reach out to them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. And time now for us to get into the news review, sweetie.
Hi, Benjamin.
Okay.
How are you doing this morning?
It appears we're practicing social distancing on this
we have this huge space. We might as well make use of it.
Yeah, but let me find out from you. How do you feel about this new space? How do you feel about all of this?
It suits as well. Yeah.
Two dapper people with a dapper studio.
You know?
A dapper studio.
Yeah, I like that. It comes with a sense of elevation for me. So I feel like now our content is also going to have to step it up a bit.
Hey.
Yeah, maybe I'm a whole pressure.
Just say. Anyway.
Yeah, but it's been It's been eye-opening, you know. We are ready to compete with the
I love the
rest of the world.
space.
Yeah.
I love space, wherever it is, whether where I reside or whatever. Someday, you know, you want to have that space where you have lots of trees, foliage, and children can play. You can even have horses. Maybe I should get a ranch.
What did you say?
Horses.
You want horses in your home?
Why not?
Hey,
People keep turkeys as pets, and you can't keep
lions. People keep lions.
I see where you're going. I'll not fall for this. I'll not fall for this. But how was your weekend?
My weekend was great. And I've been been following Katerina Georgieva's activities.
Right.
And let me start by saying the wording of some of the statements on these our leaders is interesting.
What exactly interesting?
So
you have this smile on your face. I know you get that when mischief is brewing.
Right. We know that the IMF's MD is in town for 2 days for an AI conference, and I thought the timing was also interesting. But then some of the things that the finance minister says, the president says, it leaves you. It's an open-ended statement. Let me read this to you. So he says, the need for us to try and make a balance between the rigor, which we recognize as being necessary for us to be in a good place, as well as making sure the interests of the people are protected. Dr. Amin Adam is also saying that we will ensure, we'll do whatever necessary to build stronger collaboration with IMF towards economic resilience. And she's meeting with CSOs, she's meeting with influential people. Benjamin, what's your take on it?
Has she met with you yet? I know you're very influential in Ghana. Have you booked your meeting with her yet?
Oh, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's looking to meet with you.
No, not yet.
But my take, is that what you were asking for?
Yeah.
What's
this really about?
You can read meaning into it. I remember the first time I interacted with Kristalina Georgieva, and I felt at the time that she wasn't necessarily resonating what people on the ground, because in the Netherlands, that was that famous interview where she said, Ghana has suffered from exogenous shocks. I was conducting the interview, and in my mind, I was like, you say? That kind of. But she mentioned that COVID-19, the Russo-Ukrainian war, and that those exogenous shocks combined. Indeed, they had an impact. But did they have enough of an impact to get us where we were? That's the problem. And I've always felt, administration in and out, that the Bretton Woods institutions are not necessarily always speaking the truth or always saying what will inure to the benefit of a country. Mind you, these loans we're taking, we pay back with interest. Okay. Don't get it twisted.
Okay. And I think that they act based on what they're fed. The information that our leaders feed them. That's what, in the long run, echoes into what they also say. So what data are we feeding them, for which reason they're giving us these...
You don't even want to go there. It's an echo chamber,
anyway,
so we'll leave it at that.
I thought that was the most interesting thing I was following this weekend. Let's see how that goes. There's also an AI conference, something that they're doing.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not my Daibo thoughts.
Anyway. But before we get into the papers, I'd like to find out from you watching us, how are you coping, especially as the NCA says, 5 weeks more, not just the NCA, this was funneling through, 5 weeks more before the undersea cables can be dealt with in any way to restore proper internet connectivity. There was a time when I think 2-3 days ago, even some of my calls from a certain network, I will not mention the network, were not going. Calls, text messages were not going. Yeah. At a point, you would call people, and at a certain point, you couldn't, it was just there was static. You couldn't hear anything. And the internet connectivity, thank God I have a certain chip, because that has saved me, else I would have been cut off completely. What has your experience been? How about you?
I missed deadlines. I had to send in some applications that I couldn't do because the internet was just really bad.
Wow.
But yesterday, I think there was some sort of stability I don't know if it's my network, but yesterday was better compared to Friday and Saturday. And it might take weeks, they say, for this to be restored.
5
weeks. How are we
to regain any normalcy? I've heard of this person who lost his job. He works remotely, And I don't know whether he explained that this is not just my problem, but he's somewhere here in Ghana, I think, and I could be wrong, but he's somewhere here in Ghana. He had this remote job earning him about $3,000 a month.
That's good.
That's not bad money.
Yeah.
And owing to this, he couldn't send in certain requirements. I don't know whether he took the step of explaining to them that, look, this is the challenge. It's not because I hear the response was that they feared that internet connectivity or whatever in Ghana was not good. And so he wouldn't be able to meet deadlines and the rest. When in fact, it was a problem affecting parts of Europe, parts of the Middle East, and parts
it's not just here
of
in
Africa.
Ghana.
Yeah.
But so you're okay?
Oh, yeah.
No missed deadlines, no...
I found my way around certain things I had to do. Yeah. This also reminds you of back in the day when we were using text messages and calls and nothing else. You see, as a human being, you must always be able to innovate. It's like something I shared this morning. Let me, on Facebook. Maybe it resonates that just because you mention it, it comes to mind. So it says... let me get there. When the winds of change blow, some people build walls and others build windmills. The one building the wall is trying to block it. It may knock over the wall. But the one building a windmill is trying to harness the power of it. So when change comes, you have to change accordingly.
I think I learned that lesson from a book I read, Who Moved My Cheese? Have you read that book?
Oh, yeah, I have.
Yeah. So
interesting one.
If you're just waiting around, the rest of the world will move on without you. That's what you're saying.
It is what it is.
Innovating and keeping up with what's happening with the rest of the world. It's like, I met some Gen Zs. I went to a brew over the weekend and I met some Gen Zs. And
you met some Gen Zs?
I met some Gen Zs.
You met some Gen Zs?
I met some Gen Zs.
Okay, I'll not get on your case on air. You met some Gen Zs.
And there's like, purr, and I'm like, what is that? How do you communicate like this? And I realized that either I've become very old or my circle of the kind of people I hang around have changed, and so I'm no longer hearing a lot of Gen Z or their terms. So I was a bit lost. So Benjamin, if we want to, connect with our younger audience, we need to start saying purr.
Well, not necessarily. I connect with a lot of them, but let's get into the papers. Where are you starting from?
I want to start from the Daily Graphic. There's a story here on the front page saying, lawyer splits over court shift system. Now, the judicial service is set to begin implementing a shift system which will allow some courts to sit in the evening as part of efforts to reduce backlog of cases. Dubbed the court shift system, the innovation introduced by Chief Justice Gertrude Sake Tokono will allow the selected courts to operate morning and afternoon sessions, with the morning session starting from 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. and afternoon session from 1:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Benjamin, what do you think about this? Like running shifts for the court system. And we do have a lot of backlog of cases. And so perhaps this is a step in the right direction, but how does it fit well with the judges?
You realize that shift systems, for the sake of shift systems, don't necessarily work. Look at our educational system. Gold track, green track, and all of that. It became chaotic. So a shift system merely for the sake of a shift system may not serve its purpose. But if you look at the justicial or judicial system, and you look at the courts, that's why we had the fast track high court. That's why we've had other initiatives to ensure that sometimes even judges can sit over weekends on certain specific cases. That's why some courts deal with specific issues, like the commercial angle of the high court and all of that. So depending on what the real dynamics are, it could allow some people to rest more, get enough rest, and it could also allow for more cases to be dealt with. It's all in the execution. It's not just about we have a shift system, but what is that shift system bringing to bear? I think that's where the devil is, in the detail.
But in the detail. But the intention behind it cannot be underemphasized, because we do have a lot of cases that judges don't have enough time to sit on. So they say justice delayed is justice denied. Indeed. So perhaps if the implementation or the strategies to actually execute this are well thought through, then there might not be a problem. You know, sometimes these policies and programs in themselves, are not the problem. They are not bad.
Kind of like free SHS.
Yes.
And we're talking about that today. Good policy, poor execution.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it also goes down to the human resource, the resources, both human and material resources available to ensure that these policies are executed well. Right, but let me move away. So apparently the lawyers are split over this decision, whether or not to agree and move on or to continue with the old way of doing things.
Right.
Let me move from this story and do a story here that says Ghanaians on edge await internet restoration. Of course, we just spoke about this issue and how we're all trying to stay afloat and not sink because the world is now on the internet, I like to say. Millions of Ghanaians continue to wonder in frustration and apprehension, waiting the full restoration of internet services to bring their businesses and social lives to normalcy. And we know that the 4 affected subsea cables landing service providers are working to restore the internet connectivity. But according to international sources, it was a result of damage to 4 subsea cables, with the cause of cable cutting still unknown, although a shifting of the subsea remains one of the theories. Parliament last Thursday raised the issue on the floor of the House, with members sharing personal and other experiences over the developments. We also heard from Kweku Asante, our parliamentary correspondent, on how that went on in Parliament over last week. Yeah, last week in Parliament. Let me move from there, because we've talked about that already, and say breaking the 8 to some politics. Breaking the 8, a woman running mate key to NPP. I think this story is by Dr. Kweku Adams, and he says the selection of running mates in Ghana's political landscape holds immense significance, akin to the election of flag bearers. Now, while achieving a proper balance on the tickets is crucial for the electoral success of the party, it is noteworthy that traditionally this role has been predominantly filled by men in major political parties in Ghana. This story is about the choice of Professor Jenano Pokwajiman as running mate for the NPP, and conversations are still ongoing as to whether this will deliver the much for the NDC. I said NPP. Whether this will deliver the much sought power they're looking for come December 2024.
Well, that remains to be seen. We'll find out.
Right.
December 7, 2024. After December 7.
Now, SNIT's DG urges businesses to pursue innovative means to address current internet crisis, just like what you said, Benjamin.
Right.
The Director General of the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, Dr. John Ofori-Tenkrang, is encouraged businesses to pursue other innovative means to overcome the challenges that are associated with the current internet crisis. This, he said, at an award ceremony. The event was organized by the Entrepreneurs Foundation of Ghana, honored successful entrepreneurs, business executives, and public service men. Right. It's just encouraging people to do what they can to survive before normalcy is restored. Let me do one final story in the Daily Graphic, and then we'll move on to Benjamin Akakpo. Okay, on page 37, it says mainstreaming mining. This is something about mining, oil and gas. Path to local economic resurgence. By its very nature, the mining industry relies much more on technology than human resources to extract solid minerals from the ground, which means its ability to generate employment opportunities is very low. In 2020 alone, mining companies in Ghana spent $4.387 billion on local economy through payments to manufacturers and suppliers of goods and services, government taxes, and financing of corporate social responsibility. I think the story here is that standardizing the quality of mining, doing away with galamsey,
right,
and ensuring that when we are mining, whether small scale or large scale, we are using the right channels, and in the communities that we are doing, these mining activities are taking place, are protected, their water bodies are protected, and there's some corporate social responsibility activities for them to ensure that they're not just taking so much from them, but the community also benefits from these mineral resources that they have in their communities. Before I get to the second paper, Benjamin, let's...
You made mention of December 7, and something came to mind. You realize the states, this flux we're in when it comes to internet connectivity and all that. I do not know, starting with media entities like the Multimedia Group, because we are the foremost in Ghana, so we might as well start from here, and nationally. What happens if on December 7 we're hit with something like this? What happens? How will we deal with it? How will the EC deal with it, with its biometric systems and others that may be unresponsive? How will we deal with wiring results? And could there be tampering? There could. So I feel in a year like this, we ought to be looking at how convoluted it could be if we faced something like this at that time. For us as a media entity, how difficult would it be to report? You are on location and all of that. There's no connectivity. You can't connect. How will we deal with it? You know, it's something that we ought to put out there, not just cogitate as a media entity here, but nationally, because the electoral results will reflect nationally, and we need to have something in place. What can we do to circumvent? I've been thinking about this, and I keep wondering what would happen if the internet went down, not through mischief, because in some African countries, you've seen entities, governments shutting down social media and all of that, just so people can't get information. But what would happen if that were to occur? How would we deal with it?
We just missed a huge bomb by doing away with this biometric, or by bringing back the indelible ink as a way of marking those voters.
Right.
If we were not going to do this indelible ink, I think it would have been disastrous, to say the least, because even with the what's it called, the district level elections, the parliament, the primaries that we had, we've had issues and cases of the machine failing.
True.
And so, in as much as we're trying to be a digitalized country,
but the EC has budged. The EC has budged on that. The EC has decided, well, we shall use the indelible.
Which is what I'm saying will help us, because, like you're saying, if this problem happens in December, then maybe the indelible ink will be the only way we can tell who's voted, who's not voted, and control the rigging. Because
control the rigging, huh? Yeah. You know for sure that will happen?
I do not know.
And I also ways and means both parties do inside. But let me quickly get to the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Record medal haul. I'm starting from the back page. Record medal haul for Ghana at 2023 African Games. And let me read that story and give a quick riposte, right? So Ghana is set to record her highest medal haul at any international sports meeting, following an impressive showing so far at the ongoing 13th African Games in Ghana. As of press time yesterday, Ghana had climbed the competition's medal table, occupying a respectable 6th position. I like the way they say respectable. You are hosting and you are 6th and you are happy. Anyway, with a total of 46 medals. That consists of 9 gold, 22 silver, and 15 bronze medals. The feat was made possible by the arm wrestling team that won 41 medals over the weekend, to add to earlier medals won by Abeku Jackson in swimming and Winifred Intumi in women's weightlifting. Ghana is expected to add on as athletes put up showings in boxing, tennis, and football, with high hopes in taekwondo and athletics, which kickstart at the University of Ghana Sports Stadium and Gamashi Hall at the Trust Emporium, respectively. Egypt is in the lead with 90 gold, 35 silver, 29 bronze, totaling 154. Some other country has come to your country, has a medal haul of 154. You have 41 and you're celebrating. It's not to say we shouldn't celebrate. But the point is, when you have cyclists without the proper bikes and you say, oh, we didn't know they were using their own bikes. People using shoe sizes that don't match. Someone is 46 or so, you are giving 47, size 47, you're giving them size 36. People are getting equipment a day before. And I don't understand for the life of me. I go to the University of Ghana all the time. It's my alma mater. How can you claim you've spent $34 million on refurbishing it? That entity was standing. In 2016, we spent $16 million for the entirety of the Cape Coast Stadium. And again, how is it possible that just 4+ years ago, Morocco spent $46 million for the entirety of the African Games. And we are spending $242 million, 4+ just 4 years ago. That's a difference of $196 million. How can we account for this? Well, it's up to us all. 21 perish in horrific road crash. 4 children, others injured at Breku near Konongo. I'll get into that. And I'll also get into this story. There's adequate food supply to all SHSs. Education Ministry assures. Ghana estimated to lose $1.4 billion annually through illicit financial flows. But let me start from page 9 because, sweetie, you know that story is on the back of our latest documentary, Hotline documentary, Empty Plates, the free SHS promise. Now, the Education Ministry is assuring parents and other stakeholders in the education space that the ministry has instituted pragmatic measures to ensure a regular supply of food to all senior high schools as well as technical and vocational education and training institutions in the country. The spokesperson for the ministry, Kwesi Kwarteng, who disclosed this to the media on Friday, gave the assurance following concerns raised recently by some Ghanaians on food supply to schools. Of course, it's also on the back of our Hotline documentary, Empty Plates, the free SHS promise. Even before we started airing it, they had started coming to the studio to talk about it. But you see,
they started responding to a promo.
Listen.
And sent out journalists to various senior high schools to investigate the situation.
This is the hypocrisy I hate. Me, you know me, I don't mince words. It's hypocrisy. We've been in schools without number. My own alma mater, Bishop Herman. There are things going on there. The children report. Parents are having to do stuff. Parents are telling you every week, I have to spend about 100 cedis to supplement for food. You get it? Why all this? It's almost as though we had a perfect system that couldn't have any problems. Where in the world do you have such a perfect system? So you keep talking about this. We keep exposing what is happening in documentaries, yet it's almost as though our reality were some warped reality and they were living in the real reality. I mean, how do you toy with people's intelligence?
Life too.
Like that.
Our children.
You know, people are, do you know how many of them come to me? You have these children going there, no bunk beds. You have to literally buy a bunk bed, take it there. You are giving the same meal to a student, sometimes breakfast, lunch, and supper. In some cases, lunch and supper. And you are trying to tell me you have enough food.
Throughout the term.
How can you even say that?
Some people are treating weevil-infested grain with neem leaves, because if it goes to waste, they don't have options. They don't have another coming in soon. So
do you know what's sad?
Need to eat.
You can't work. Brain work. Schooling is brain work. You can't do brain work without the right nutrition. So in other words, we are setting up these children to fail because we're not giving them the right nutrition. But the final story I'll do here, 21 perish in horrific road crash, 4 children, others injured at Breku near Konongo, and 21 passengers were killed when 2 vehicles involved in a head-on collision. What's it with these head-on collisions nowadays? Too many of them. At Breku near Konongo in the Asante Akim South District of the Asante region Friday night. 14 victims, including drivers of both vehicles, were said to have died on the spot, and the remaining 7 passed on at the Joaso and Konongo government hospitals. May their souls rest in peace. So sad. Very sad, that development. Other stories?
A lot of accidents happening lately.
Yeah, they are. But in some instances, too, you blame drivers because you see how some drivers drive on good roads, right? Well, it's like Lord Kenya said,
sometimes we get overly complacent on, how we can steer our way through speed and anything. Let me do this story here about the NPP who put out some names of women who could be potential running mates.
The NPP.
The NPP.
I would salute them for that, but if I look into my political crystal ball, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
So why put it
It's not that I am not for it.
Okay.
I've always been for women in leadership. Way back, even through my uni days, I was pushing women some of whom became presidents of groups because it had never happened. But I'm saying that when you look at the NPP now and all the rhetoric and everything, it's simply not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
But let me just give you some names that's been put forward. Honorable from Opare.
Right.
Your guess was right.
Eslo
Ekufu. So you know the names.
I know the names.
Reverend Dr. Joyce Rosalind Ayi, Professor Kweku Adams, Honorable Irene Natoshi Ado. And yes, these are the names that have been put forward. And I do not know if it's just a way of, I do not want to say competing, but the NDC's settled on someone, a woman, and it's got a lot of traction that they're looking at the feminine side, women representation. First time to put a woman in a place, potentially becoming president for this country.
And other African countries have taken the lead.
Liberia, and
Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Tanzania, and other places. But the point is, this is really tricky for the NPP, right?
So because why do this? Why just put out some names?
But the reality too is having a female contender, running mate, appeals to a certain constituency. You can't run away from that. There are some people who will vote maybe for the NDC simply because they have a woman who is going to be on a certain pedestal, on a certain perch. Some people will do that.
Right.
And where the MPP is, it's a very tricky position. You want to capitalize on everything you can, because trust me, election 2024 is going to be tight. It's going to be hardcore. I mean, in the sense that the MPP can't afford to lose a single vote. Not even one vote. And unfortunately, you have dynamics where Alan has moved away from the Afafanto movement and is going to claw away votes. You have friction within the party. When I spoke to Nyaho Tamaklo, he says the party has wide schisms and all of that. It's going to be very tricky for the MPP. Very tricky.
Election 2024 is really one to look forward to. And you know, we are your election headquarters. We will bring you up-to-the-minute updates,
I guess
unbiased analysis.
We should say election 2024. Did
you see that promo of Katie Hammond?
Which one?
No libi-libi. No.
But I thought the term was that thing when I thought it was no libi-libi, no laba-laba.
What did he say?
No libi-libi, no basa-basa. I think he has a remix. You know, that's the one who refers to people like me, young people who like voicing out with beards as coconut heads. Oh, one test I don't know. Okay, what they penny, what they minjano here.
Yeah. But perhaps this is part of the politicking women into believing that they have our interest at heart. I'm just saying.
You mean the politicians?
I mean the politicians.
I say that.
Why put out some names as potential, or that you're considering them for the position, and if eventually you do not actually settle on any of these women,
I think the same thing happened.
Think of you as your character
with the IGP situation once. You know, there was a time when a woman actually took over acting as IGP, but she wasn't confirmed as. But in this Fourth Republic, I don't feel we've done badly. From Georgina Theodora Wood, we've had Chief Justices, 3 out of 4, apart from Justice Enini Yabua. You've had a female Speaker of Parliament, Justice Bamford Ado. You've had women in crucial positions, but we can do better, and we can put women. Look, it is proven that women in a lot of capacities do better than men. It's a fact. Other countries, Croatia, New Zealand, have had women leaders, and they fared well. I don't know, but we still have our own way to go. I'll just do. Are you done?
Yes, I am.
I'll do some stories quickly from here, and we can go. The Daily Guide. I am prepared to lead spirited campaign. Dr. Baumia says so. I wish he could grant us digital electricity, because Nancy, you know, Charlie, let's digitalize the electricity so that maybe you use your Ghana card, and then the electricity, you know. 1 minute be our name.
Benjamin, if we digitize electricity, in this rare case that whether sharks have gone to chew at some fiber undersea cables or whatever cost that.
But this one digital,
but if we do it and we don't have any backups, we don't have options to replace.
But that will be our backup. The cable one will be the normal one. The digital electricity will be the backup one. Well, the flag bearer of the MPP, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, has announced his readiness to lead an effective and spirited campaign, intimating that the party has a, quote, solid track record and a good campaign message for the 2024 general election. You know, when he talks about solid track record, do you know what it reminds me of? Oh, Professor Jam Bafo. What
a solid team.
What a solid team. The new finder says parliamentary candidates are anchor of MPP's 2024 victory. Dr. Baumia says so. Finance Ministry, IMF hold AI summit today, and Gambian transport officials applaud Metro Mass inventions. There's also Africa's prosperity crucial to global prosperity, says IMF MD after touring the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park. That's our wrap. Any other stories?
No, but please tell us about Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic.
Let me see whether we have any birthdays today. Do I see any birthdays from here? Okay, none that I see for now. If I do, we'll check them out later. But thank you so much for staying with us. And we can't say enough. This is our new studio. You know what? As you share your thoughts with us, let us know what you think about the new studio. Well, right before we get into sports, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us bring you this segment. They are offering you, if you're a man, prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. Reach out to them at any of their branches here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronoma Bwehian behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrade Anaji Estate, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiama Nzama. Their call lines remain 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. And the end to the news review.
Yeah.
Yankobobo kakra. Yankobobo.
Now, with this new studio, we can get up and do anything.
Oh, yeah, we can do some what he has here.
Let's get up.
Mufta Nabila, where is he? Let's bring him in.
Let's go.
We're off the set.
All right, we'll see you soon.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullah. You would recall that Joy Sports revealed that the Ghana Football Association was in a conversation with Otto Addo to appoint him as the head coach of the senior national team, following the decision of the football governing body to part company with Chris Hughton, who led Ghana to a horrendous performance in this year's AFCON in Abidjan. Well, the rumors finally became a reality as the Ghana Football Association confirmed the appointment of Otto Addo on a 34-month contract. According to the Ghana Football Association, Otto Addo will take charge of the Black Stars effective May. That is the end of the current Bundesliga season. His monthly salary, per information available to Joy Sports, is $50,000. And we also understand that there were some conversations that transpired behind the scenes following the decision of the GFA to engage the services of Otto Addo. They had to speak to Borussia Dortmund, engage with the Ministry of Youth and Sports, reach an agreement on his salary and his contract duration. Joy Sports can reveal that the GFA and Otto Addo has put together a 5-year project. So what it means is that Otto Addo is likely to be the head coach of the Black Stars for the next 5 years. Otto Addo has gone ahead to announce his backroom staff, and they were led by Joseph Lawman, as well as former Ghana Black Stars right back Joseph John Pencil, and former Ghana goalkeeper Fathau Dauda. And Joy Sports can reveal that Otto Addo wanted Michael Essien as his assistant coach, but when the appointment committee got in touch with Michael Essien, he told them that he was not interested in the job at the moment. Otto Addo was the other option. Ibrahim Thanko was the other alternative to Michael Essien, but the Ghana Football Association settled on John Pencil, whose appointment has raised questions within the media space because about 5 years ago, Otto Addo, John Pencil, was fired by Legon Cities over what many people said. He did not have the technical requirement to be able to manage a football team. So we wait to see what the reaction of the Ghana Football Association would be. But later today, Track and field will be starting in the African Games. Ghana's record holder when it comes to the 100 meters is Benjamin Azamati. He's been speaking ahead of that. He says the pressure of winning for them is something that excites him. And he also says that they are here to make the country proud.
I would like to say we are all very much prepared. Having been here from Monday, seeing everything that's going on, seeing the practices and everything, I think you're ready. I mean, since last year, we've had it at the back of our mind that the African Games is going to be hosted in Ghana, and so we had to prepare and come here to be able to, run fast and represent the country well, as well as winning laurels for our country. So I would say basically the whole team is prepared, the whole team is ready to hit the tracks, to be able to put also win. Ghanaians wish me well, of course. So if there's any pressure, it's just for me to perform better, to be able to, make Ghanaians proud and also make myself proud. So yes, there's a responsibility of, defending the title that we won in Morocco. It would be nice to defend it here in front of the home crowd. So I believe we can do it, and then come Thursday we will do it.
Now let's hear from the man who is at the corner of Ghana's Black Bombers, Coach Oforia Sare. He's been speaking, reacting to the performances of Ghanaian boxers in the ongoing African Games.
Well, I think they are doing marvelously well. They are responding to all the training that we've gone through. And when you train, the most important thing is you have to get results. And I'm seeing something like that. And I hope we'll go further, be able to do more. We have a female and male team. We know very well that our female team is not strong, but we believe that we can build them for a better future. So if we are able to get medal at the female, fine. If not, we'll encourage them for another. But for men, there's no way we are going to get a medal. More
medals. About how many?
More.
Let's talk about the individuals. We saw Henry Mann yesterday. There were some complaints about his defenses and how he didn't seem to have the momentum. What's the issue with him? Is it the ring rusts?
No, Henry Mann went to professional and has been professional for some time. Now he has to adjust to the amateur. The speed in amateur is different from the professional. So it's just a matter of time. It's good that he wins. And if he continue winning and continue training, I think the speed will come and everything will be okay.
We've seen some of the cheap fights now. A few people also raise concerns about his defenses and how they seem to be a bit erratic and wasn't really in control of his defenses like that. Is that something to worry about?
Yeah, for now, like I just said, amateur is speed. You don't have time. You don't get time to. So you must do it from up and down. You must explode. You must explode. Explosiveness in amateur is very, very important. So your thinking must be in your style. If you want to relax and think before you lose. So they ask for defense. He has the defense, and he knows what to do when the time comes. But this is amateur boxing. So you need to be explosive and speed.
Just to conclude, you've seen opponents. I picked out Frank Mombe, the Gabonese. Is there anyone that you've seen that you think will be a threat to the Ghana team or killing everyone?
Well, every country that is here is a threat because they've all prepared. And this is boxing. Boxing is a sport that has no respect for the master. So it doesn't matter who you are. Even professionals come here and they lose. So it's a sport that has no respect for the master. So we just have to be very careful and keep on working very
in the central region, the harsh reality comes to life. A dining hall prefect, Sambali, informs first-year students of the insufficient food supply. Their meals are reduced to simple, often nutritionally inadequate options. This situation is not unique to the central region, but is echoed across schools in other regions.
It's unfortunate that our food is not enough. As I've told you earlier, we have no food at the stores, and the master is in our ground now, fighting for food for our own benefit. So we are pleading with you to manage the little here, and we promise you very soon there will be enough food for us so that we can all enjoy ourselves. Thank
you. Under the policy, residential students are supposed to benefit from 3 square meals, while non-residential ones get 1 hot meal. But not only was the quantity of food served these children less than they expected, but 12 to 8 students are assigned to a jug of porridge or bowl of food.
The challenge has been that my daughter is constantly complaining that the food they are fed with is not enough. I've taken the pains to also provide enough food, like Gary and others, that she can eat from her chop box. But it turns out that the school has drawn a timetable for visiting the chop box, so that there's days that she cannot go to the chop box even though she has food, and they can also not provide enough at the dining hall. So it's a challenge. Parents of this school have come together to get support for the school. So we contribute some amount of money. We're supposed to contribute twice in a term. That's 500 cedis for the first half, and the other half we contribute another 500 cedis.
We tried to support, but because of government initiative, it's difficult. So for me, I sometimes, let me put in quotes, smuggled food to the school for my ward.
What food do you usually smuggle to your ward?
Oh, sometimes rice, sometimes fufu, sometimes umchi. Send it to the school.
To the online platform I had infiltrated, I discovered numerous complaints from school heads about weevil-infested maize bags supplied, despite assurances from the free SHS coordinator that only a few bags were affected. My observations revealed several bags of maize being treated with neem tree leaves to ward off the pests. Given the critical food shortages, some school heads have conveyed to me their inability to discuss the contaminated maize, as there is scarcely enough to feed the students.
Look at here. I want you to take. I want you to take a view. This is maize infested. Highly infested. So someone advised us that we can use the neem tree. So yesterday we put it outside. The boys put it outside, and these were given to be fed to the children. Yes, 3 SHs. And so they are there a lot. So I'm experimenting. So yesterday we spread it on the ground. We put the neem tree upon it, and we are seeing some reduction, and that's what. But it is the work of headmasters.
And that's how we kickstart our big stories. We're focusing on the situation in our second tier or second cycle institutions. Free SHS. Now, when it comes to feeding, among other things, has it been a blessing or a curse? It has to do with that latest Hotline documentary, Empty plates, the free SHS promise. This was not what was promised, but how do we tweak it? You don't throw away the baby with the bath water, right? You want to keep the baby, which is free SHS. But where is the bath water? How do you deal with it? And we're going to have that all-important conversation this morning with a deputy ranking member on the Education Committee of Parliament in the person of Dr. Clement Apak. He joins me in the studio this morning. Doc, good morning.
Let me say good morning to you and to our viewers, and to say a Happy New Year.
Right.
I just became aware that this is the first time I've come to multimedia, and this is the first time that you are hosting me in your new studio.
Right.
So
welcome to the new studio. What do you think about it?
Well, I think it is very befitting. I mean, having known your media organization for years,
right,
and the fact that you've always been pace setters, I think the augmented edifice really keeps you in your enviable position.
Prime of place.
Primus
inter pares.
You must be commended. Primus
Thank you.
inter pares.
Thank you.
Negusa negast. As a student of African history, you know, Ethiopian history,
right?
The rise of the Ethiopian state, the Aksumite kingdom. Primus inter pares was known as the Negusa negast. So, Congress.
Thank you, and we're grateful. We do all of this for God and country so that we can serve the people better. But let's come to more critical issues. Have you seen, you watched the excerpts. Today, the 18th day of the third month, we're airing Empty Plates, the free SHS promise. Like I mentioned, free SHS, no one disputes. It's a good thing, but every step of the way, there have been problems. I'd like to get your initial views on what you have seen. I do know that you want to start from the generic standpoint.
That is correct.
You can start from there, but let's quickly do that and narrow it down to free SHS.
Very well. I think we all must agree that education is one of the most important services a state and or a parent can offer to your ward. And that is why across the globe, every nation, every country, regardless of the system of governance, whether a democracy, a theocracy, an oligarchy, you name it, would always invest time, resources in education. Because it is education that gives us the training that we need not only to contribute to our nation and to our humanity, but to better ourselves and to also better our families and those yet to come. Take you and I, for example. We are here in this studio today having a conversation of a national magnitude because of education. And we know education must start from somewhere.
Yeah.
So, of course, you cannot leap from kindergarten, which is, you know, the foundation, to secondary school.
Right.
And so whilst I appreciate the fact that we have to focus on what is going on within the context of the free senior school policy and the implementation challenges thereof, I think it is important that I give a quick summary of the challenges in the lower tier, which is a very important foundational segment of the educational ladder. As we speak, basic education is equally bedeviled with perhaps even much more challenging situations that the Ghanaian public is not aware of because of the lack of politicization of public.
Lack of politicization.
Yes.
Really?
The reason why we keep speaking more about secondary education is because it has been overtly politicized with the introduction of the free senior school policy. So the time, energy, and resources.
You are suggesting that because that has become a political topic,
that is correct,
we tend to focus on it.
A lot
but at
more.
the basic level, because it's not politicized, we don't talk as much.
We don't tend to talk about it as much.
Right.
But I think that in itself is a disservice to us because the students must go from basic to secondary. And so when you don't have a robust, well-grounded, well-resourced and facilitated basic education. Then the structure, which is secondary, and the superstructure, which is tertiary, is troubled because the product must come from the base to the middle and then go to the apex. As we are speaking today, capitation grant, which is the grant that allows us to say that public basic education is free, is in areas of 8 terms or 8 tranches. And yeah, this is the grant that the heads of the basic schools, the head teachers, have to use to procure, attendance registers, chalk, fix broken down doors, windows, get masons to come and patch cracked walls, finance sporting activities or PE, and cultural activities. And so when there are arrears, it puts a lot of pressure on the heads of public basic schools. In fact, believe it or not, these days, the job that many teachers dread the most is to become appointed as the head of a public basic school because of the numerous challenges. The furniture deficit, I know your media network.
We've spoken a lot
You've
about it.
spoken a lot about it. You've done this series, Schools of Shame. We have a deficit in excess of 1.3 million. What that tells you is that 1.3 million learners in our basic school system have no access to furniture. And now we have the issue of textbooks. Textbooks that ought to have accompanied the new standard-based curriculum, which came into being in September 2019. Only 65% of those textbooks have been produced and distributed. And more recently, with the utilities, Electricity Corporation of Ghana and Ghana Water, doing their best to recoup or to augment their revenue, they are cutting power supply to different entities and institutions. This actually also includes public basic schools. So the challenges in the basic sector are also enormous. And I'm hoping that someday we can have time to delve in more detail. Now to secondary education.
Right.
I belong to the NDC. And we had an alternative.
And hopefully we can look at this holistically.
Yes. I'm not going to talk
without
politics.
politicizing.
No. I just want to give the context.
Right.
I want to give the context because there is still the false narrative being pushed to suggest that the NDC is opposed to free senior high school. And that if the NDC gets a chance, if Ghanaians were to elect John Dramani Mahama and the NDC, we will cancel free senior high school. When in fact, that is not what we have said. What we have said is that the free senior high school concept is born of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. And the Constitution mandates that the state shall work to make education free or progressively free, as we like to use that rendition.
So that's why we have a spin-off from F cube at the basic level and then the continuation at the secondary level.
That is correct. Right. And we indeed had started what we call the progressive free senior high school policy. In fact, we were commended by then candidate Akufo-Addo when John Dramani Mahama catch sword for the first E-block at Ekumfi, Otuam, and announced the beginning of the progressively free senior high school policy. Now the tide changed, so they come into power, and their alternative was to go wholesale. But even so, we know that the students who were in third and second year in 2017 did not benefit from what we defined within the context of the current nomenclature as free senior high school. But be as it may, we have all come to accept that this is a good policy because the concept is of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. But we also pointed out that there are challenges that ought to be addressed. And to address those challenges, if we have the mandate, we will review the policy in order to address those challenges with the intent of making it better. And that is where I believe it is important to clarify. Because suddenly the word review has been redefined to mean cancel, which clearly is not the case.
But I think recently, I do not know whether I think it was even the SONA. Mr. President used that word at a point in reference to free SHS. The very first time.
The word review.
Yeah.
Actually, he didn't.
He didn't. He used the word akin to that. And you must give him credit for that because it's the first time in any sequence that we've heard him even make mention of that. And that points to something. The vice president, who is flag bearer of the NCA, has also pointed to some
They use the word improve. Review. They don't use review.
Which the education minister started using.
Yes.
But an improvement is some sort of review.
But how do you improve a system that is challenged without a review? And you see, here's the hypocrisy. In fact, I'm so glad that you brought this up. If you look at the first review of our engagement with the IMF,
right,
aka the bailout, page 76, paragraph 47, the second paragraph, government actually tells the IMF that in the educational sector, and I'm quoting because I've memorized it, it's my area, that in the educational sector, we will review and rationalize. So they are not just telling the IMF that they will review, but they will review and rationalize the free senior high school program.
And rationalization in economic terms
means
comes with
making it efficient.
Exactly.
So this is a government, and it is important, that is refusing to admit to Ghanaians the challenges that we have complained about, that your documentary is helping to expose in a much more poignant manner, in a way that has never been done before. And you must be commended, because what you have done in terms of this documentary that you have titled Empty Place,
the free SHS promise.
The free SHS promise has never been done before. So this is going to escalate the debate to a level that we have never witnessed before. But the reason why I'm making this point is that Ghanaians of all walks of life, all stakeholders in the educational sector, I mean, name it, NAGRAT, CCT, NAT, you can talk about the National House of Chiefs, the Chief Imam, almost every stakeholder in the Republic has called for a review of the policy because of the challenges that we know are bedeviling the program and denying the Ghanaian public, the Ghanaian state, and the beneficiaries, our wards, from getting the maximum outcome from the policy. But government has refused. And instead of government admitting, finally, as it has admitted to the IMF, that it would review and rationalize, government through the president, through the flag bearer Mahmoud Bawumia, through the Minister for Education Edu Chum, would rather use the word improve. But how do you improve a system when you do not assess it?
Okay, so let's go past the semantics, the nomenclature. It also reminds me of the fact that I believe it was the IMF, if not the World Bank, but just to be on the safer side, I believe it was the IMF when we were in the process of securing the program from the IMF, or getting the IMF to support our program. Basically, that is what it is.
That's correct.
When they issued that document, I do not know whether it's the document 4 or something of the sort, they stated in there that there were problems with free SHS and that it had a targeting problem.
That's correct.
In other words, it's been spread across, but we could do more with it to narrowing it down to those target groupings who actually require it. There were proposals.
That's correct.
Right from the start of this IMF program. And mind you, this is not to say free SHS is bad. No one has ever said.
Not at all.
The issue is in implementing free SHS. Are we getting it right? That is the question.
That is the question.
So at least that background will help to know that right from the start, the IMF had been prompting us that the way you are executing this may not be the best of situations. But coming back to where we find ourselves, this isn't the first time we've had a feeding problem.
No.
Or exposed feeding problems.
No.
We've done that. This network, this media entity has done it time and again. Free SHS and the problem with feeding. I think sometime last year, Laboni SHS, among other places, struggling with food. Practically every year, we've had problems. Buffer stock and all that. Are you surprised we're here again?
No, I'm not. The reason why I'm not surprised is because government has chosen to play the ostrich. And instead of government adopting a holistic approach in addressing the mosaic of challenges because the feeding aspect is one, but I would say it's perhaps the most important. Government has chosen to do what I would call firefighting. So when there are agitations from parents, when media houses do reports and documentaries, when letters leak from some headmasters indicating challenges to do with food, for example, the supply of inadequate food or the supply of one staple. We have instances where schools have been supplied with insane bags of oligari without beans, for example.
Right.
So when those things come up, government quickly moves in and addresses that. But government has failed to be honest in addressing the problem holistically. And the problem is like a monster. You know, it's almost like the head of Medusa. It has many tentacles. Because there is a component that I can demonstrate to you where some buffer stock food suppliers, I say some, have taken advantage of the system, perhaps because of political connections, or perhaps because they know that the headmasters do not have the capacity to hold them accountable. So, for example, a school is expected to have maybe 50 bags of gari. We have instances where a supplier will supply them with only 20 bags of gari. And when the headmaster tries to raise concerns, you are shut down. And if you push a bit further, you are penalized. So then they keep quiet. And then we have instances.
Wait.
Oh, yes.
Hold on. You're suggesting that because, yes, and political ties come in at any point. We know that, whether it's at the NDC or the MPP. But you are suggesting that in this instance, people are getting away with basically, this is fraud.
Yes, it is. And I can demonstrate
If someone
that.
is not supplying what they are meant to supply.
That is correct.
And they are getting paid for it.
That is correct.
Fraud.
Yes, it is fraud, but it is happening. So that is just one example. And I can give you several examples. In fact, I'm trying to pull up a document that was a report done by PIAC, the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, where they gave examples of situations where food items were not fully supplied. They also gave examples of instances where, in fact, expired, weevil-infested food items were supplied to schools.
And we saw some of them in that excerpt where they were using neem tree or neem to try and get the weevils out and then make them consumable. And
exactly.
You already know that such a product would not be nutritious enough for the children.
So the point I'm making is that some of us are sounding like broken records. I've been speaking to these issues for several years, and I've been citing examples. And the PIAC report, 2017-2018 review of the Free Senior High School policy, is the one I'm trying to pull up for you. I hope I didn't leave it in my car. But it is a public document that anyone can access.
You can tell us about some of the instances.
Very well. But even, it's, I think it's here at the top. And here it is 2018-2019.
Right.
And so this is the reason why I think that government...
But we're in 2024.
Exactly. So the point I'm making is that these issues are not new.
Right.
But rather than government taking a holistic look and addressing the challenge, as we have advocated, as Charles has advocated. You know, Charles is the heads,
assisted secondary
senior
high schools, right?
Almost every year that they have their annual conference, they issue a communique,
right?
And they list the challenges affecting the program.
Is this one of the challenges they've been listing time and again?
Yes, the issue of food. The fact that buffer stock food suppliers undersupply. The fact that sometimes they get food items that are not wholesome. We even know of instances where canned food items expired have been supplied to schools, where canned food items not certified by the FDA have been supplied to schools.
That could be dangerous.
Yes.
Items like that could lead to food poisoning.
Exactly.
Because you do not know.
Exactly. And these are even captured in the Auditor General's reports. I am a member of the Public Accounts Committee, so I always take note I mean, we don't have time, but I brought them for good reason. So these issues are not new. So if you were to look at the PIAC report, challenges, food suppliers, says non-involvement of schools in the selection of supplies, which definitely is an issue. So, for example, we are advocating, and Charles is also advocating, that we revert back to the previous arrangement, the previous system, where the schools are given the funding to identify their own suppliers, to procure their needs according to their own arrangements, as was the case. And this is something that we in the NDC have proposed. This is something that Charles himself has also proposed, but government doesn't seem interested in that.
And in any case, in different parts of the country, people have a different palate. You may go to some places where the students may prefer Banku more.
That is correct.
In other places, TZ more because of the availability of sorghum, millet.
That is correct.
Among other things. So if you do this, and it goes back to a point that the Agric Minister, Brian Echampo, recently, you know, back in our day, school farms, we were weeding, we were growing yam, maize, other things, right? It was a source of IGFs, if you like, internally generated funds for the schools. And we could even sell the excess to other entities, make money, and use it for other purposes.
I remember.
At least that's a step in the right direction.
Yes, I think so too.
What Brian Echampong is proposing.
I think so too. But in the meantime, when government is applying colossal sums of our resources, and if you look at the allocations from 2017 to the present, if you add all of them up, we are looking at a range of about 14 billion Ghana cedis. If you look at the actual expenditure, when the Minister for Finance came to Parliament to present the 2024 budget, he said government had expended 8.4 billion to finance the program. And for 2024, an allocation of 2.7 billion was approved. So give or take, if we say 8.4, which is actual expenditure from 2017 to 2023, for 2024, we are looking at an allocation of 2.7. Let's assume that we are going to expend the whole 2.7, and you add it to 8.4. Look at the amount, and 70% of the cost of Free Senior High School goes to feeding. So there cannot be any reason why our wards are being fed unwholesome food items, whilst buffer stock food suppliers, some of them, are shortchanging the schools. And let me give you a quick example. This is the 2021 Auditor General's report on the public accounts of Ghana, pre-university educational institutions for the financial year ended 31st December 2021. Page 142. Shortfall in supply of food items. The Auditor General captures 15 companies. Let's take one, rice. The companies are Havila Precious Limited and Lemons Ventures and Co. They were to supply 1,363 bags of 50 kg rice.
What's the figure again?
1,363 50 kg bags of rice.
Right.
They supplied only 1,000.
So it was left with 300.
The shortfall was 363.
That's about a third of the figure that
exactly. 2, mackerel. Lemons Ventures, and that company is notorious. Take a note of that. I have decided to follow up and to find out who the owners and beneficial owners of this company is.
What did you find out?
So far, my questions that are filed in Parliament have not been responded to. But
responded to by whom?
By the Minister for Education. Because I want to know.
Right.
This company alone seems to get the biggest supply contracts as far as supplying food to our secondary schools are concerned. So get this, mackerel, Lemons Ventures. They were to supply 1,125 boxes of 24 by 400 grams. They supplied only 530. The difference is 597. And I can go on
but wait, and we don't have the time for that. But were they paid for the full sum, or were they paid solely for what they delivered? That's the question.
Yes, I would argue. Because we have instances where buffer stock food suppliers have gone on demonstrations. You reckon that sometime last year, in fact, they had pitched camp at the offices of the buffer stock company.
I know that.
It was the same Minister for Agric and others on our side who intervened, and the issue was resolved. I have never heard of this particular company complaining about a lack of payment. So,
but you also cannot assume. You cannot assume that just because there's a difference between we've agreed that we'll supply X amount, but we were not able to supply X amount. We supplied Y, and you paid for Y. It's a possibility.
It is.
Unless you can specifically tell me that they were paid for the full consignment and they did not deliver the full consignment.
I have no reason to believe that.
I
have no reason to believe that they have not been paid.
Why? Because they've not reacted?
I am in the sector. And I know. Look, if you want me to be honest, this is the same company that was given a contract to supply mackerel to all 724 senior high schools in this country.
The same company?
Yes. So
when? Which year?
This was in 2021.
2021.
Yes, and I filed a question to it. And in almost every segment of this document that I hold, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this company's name appears 5 times in terms of its. And that is part of the problem. So the point I'm trying to make is that.
And if we knew the ownership of the company, then it becomes clearer. Do they have political affiliations?
Exactly.
Are they getting away with anything because of those political affiliations? Is it even owned by people in power?
Exactly. But we all are in this dispensation.
When you say we all are in this dispensation?
As in the Ghanaian context.
Right.
And how political influence and influence peddling drives what happens, which I think is most unfortunate.
Do you think the education minister is aware of these things?
Of course, he has to be aware. I mean, look at the annual reports that the Conference of Government-Assisted Secondary Schools issues every year. And I can give you a copy. They list all the items. I've just shown you Auditor General's reports. I've indicated what PIAC had reported in 2018, 2019. We hear the complaints from parents. We know parents who have to smuggle food to campuses to feed their wards. We know some parents who have to pay women living in the vicinity of the schools
for their children.
Cook for their wards.
Right. We've seen all of that. And in fact, in what we just showed you, you would also see in there how some parents say they are smuggling about 100 CDs a week to their children to ensure that they eat properly and that they can actually undertake their academic work. But what is
worrisome? Let me make this point. What is worrisome with regards to this one issue, as far as the myriad of challenges, and I can list them, there are many, but since we are just doing food, and food is important, is that we are dealing with young adolescents, teenagers. They are in their formative years. So the issue of a balanced, nutritious diet is very important for their physical growth and well-being, for their mental growth and well-being,
cognitive development,
their emotional growth and stability. So when you have situations where they are underfed or they are fed with unwholesome food items, where they are fed with one staple, clearly we are doing a serious disservice to the future of this.
Right, but let's quickly look at how the education ministry has responded. I remember on one of these, when we're talking about a deficit of desks and all of that, the education minister infamously, I don't know why they do this sometimes, and some media station, and we were talking about schools of shame, and he was talking about schools of fame. Agreed, you can look at both sides, because there are some schools that are doing very well. And even the STEM schools they are bringing up. fantastic. But if there are schools of fame and there are schools of shame on the other end, you should be able to target the schools of shame and make them schools of fame.
That's correct.
But the reactions, even when we came out with this, even before we had aired it, there were responses. But in light of this recent one, the Education Ministry is assuring that there's an adequate food supply to all senior high schools. In fact, when you look at page 9 of the Ghanaian Times newspaper today, I want to read verbatim. It says, the spokesperson for the ministry, Kwesi Kwarteng, disclosed this to the media on Friday, gave the assurance following concerns raised recently by some Ghanaians on food supply to the schools. He talks about the fact that there is an adequate supply. He explained that after the tour, they had conducted some tour, the teams confirmed that all schools currently had adequate stock of food in their storage facilities. You know what? I want you to call. If you're in any of these institutions or your ward, your child is in any of these institutions, and send us a message. And at some point, we may activate the phone lines. And they don't have food or there are some of these problems. Send us a message on our Facebook live stream, or maybe we can, I'll listen to my producer, what he will say about whether we can take calls on this matter. And he also says, and this is where sometimes I worry, quote, following reports and speculations about the irregular distribution of food items to SHS or TVET institutions across the country recently, the sector minister, Dr. Osei Yao Educhum, tasked teams to all regions of the country to ascertain the true state of affairs in connection with the food supply in schools. Are they telling us, rational, sentient Ghanaians, that when they went across all of these 700 plus schools, they did not find any of this, which is why they are saying these are reports and speculations? I don't know. What's your take?
You see, that is my problem. It's exactly why I spoke about the politicized nature of dealing with anything to do with the Free Senior High School. Rather than admitting and coming around the table, as we have been calling for, organize a national stakeholders forum. Let's have an honest conversation. Bring in parents, bring in the teachers, bring in the heads, bring everyone. Let's look at the issues and address them. Government chooses to attack. And look, let me be honest with you. You are a vandal, I am a vandal. The motto of our great hall is truth stands. This is the posture of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo himself. You are forgetting that your own network was attacked. When once upon a time, you did a segment on the Free Senior High School policy and the challenges. You opened the phone lines for parents to call in. He had been invited by the University of Cape Coast, where he was going to be awarded a doctorate in educational leadership. He used that opportunity to chastise your network. And so when his vice, the flag bearer, his minister, Educhum, and now the spokesperson for the Ministry of Education, postures this way, the reality that students of this republic, sons and daughters of Ghanaian taxpayers, parents who pay taxes, have told your investigative journalists, confirmed by the heads of government assisted secondary schools, captured in Auditor General's reports, captured in a PIAC report, and you call it speculation? I mean, they should credit us with a modicum of intelligence. These are the realities, and they ought to face the facts.
Right.
Rather than trying to deny and parry away and sort of suggest that anyone who speaks about the challenges is against the policy, they should get off their high horse. Government and government spokesperson alone cannot be more intelligent and more in tune with the issues compared to the rest of society, compared to the headmasters, compared to the teachers, compared to the parents, and even compared to the students. And that is precisely the problem. How do you describe what has been confirmed by multiple sources of information as speculation? And this is what I was saying. Firefighting. So yes, because of the, Joy FM, Joy News multimedia documentary, very quickly they are moving in. They've gone to a few schools. They are trying to augment. Give it about 3 to 4 months.
Right.
We are going to go back to the status quo. And that is exactly the problem. Instead of dealing with it as a national issue, they continue to see it as a political matter. So defensive. But I've always argued that the policy is not being financed by the personal resources of Akufo-Addo, of Bawumia, or Educhum, or Kwesi Kwarteng. It is being financed by our collective resources. So we have a say.
All right. So we'd love to hear from you on this matter. You can be a parent, you can be a student, you can be a headmaster. I mean, we're not discriminating. I know for the headmasters, if you say something, you may suffer the consequences, as we've known. It's common knowledge. But call that number, 0302-211-692. 0302-211. Today we are using extension 2, 692. Give us a call. We have limited time. Let's know what your reality is in that institution or as a parent. So moving on from here, how do we, in talking about it, we must have solutions. We can't just come here and talk about the problem.
That is correct.
What are the solutions?
Well, for us in the NDC, and
again, I don't even like it for us in the NDC.
No.
What is the solution
we will get there.
To the matter?
The solution. The solution,
right,
as we have proposed. The solution, as Charles has proposed. The solution, as Nagrat has proposed, as almost every other stakeholder but government has proposed, is to decentralize the food distributory system. Let's go back to what pertained before the introduction of the current form of free senior high school.
All right.
Let's let the monies go back
to
the heads of the institutions. Let them meet with their bezes, their dining hall masters, dining hall professors.
Let them work it out. Hold for me. We have a caller. I'll come back to you.
Their supplies
we have
needed.
Enoch from Koforidua. Enoch, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
What are your quick thoughts? Please, when you call, I want you to go straight to the point because we want to take as many calls as possible. What are your concerns?
Okay. I have my niece at Agona Secondary School.
Agona Secondary School.
They are asking them to bring what we call, A4 sheet and official paper. Meanwhile, they are in their second semester, Form 2. When they were going, it was part of their proposal, which we bought. So then understand, as at now, they are still expecting them to bring what? A4 sheet and official sheet.
How much are they charging you for that?
No, they still have to buy it and send it to school.
Okay, I see. And have you been able to provide that?
He just left that a week ago. So he called me yesterday. I said, why should they demand this from you after you bought the...
Hello, Enoch?
I verified from a staff member, and he confirmed that, yes, you should.
I see.
To extort money from me. Not knowing that it's a true thing.
I see. Thank you very much, Enoch, for sharing that concern. We'll get down to it. Agona Senior High School. Let's move on to the next caller, 0302-211-692. When we get, I know there was another caller on the line. When we get the next caller, we'll get back to it. So that is your proposal. Let the schools deal with the situation. Let them deal with the funding and let them have their own suppliers.
Let government send the funding for food to the schools. Let the schools identify their own suppliers and procure from them.
But listen, there could be corruption at the top from government's end and the supply chain. If you leave it to the schools as well, they will also have their level of corruption. You know that?
Well, we've tried that before. And at the time, we were not hearing of the current arrangement. So whilst I cannot say that it will be incident-free, comparatively.
You think it will be better?
Yes, we wouldn't have companies being assigned huge contracts from the center to supply foods, and yet headmasters have no say when the quantities are not what they ought to be.
We have Felix from the Northeast region. Felix, where in the Northeast region are you? Hello, Felix. Oh, it appears we've lost Felix on that bit. Please try to call Felix and let's hear from you. Some of you, I don't know whether because of politics, I see some comments, and this one says, you are calling someone a certain word I cannot use, and you say the person is complaining about A4 sheets. Maybe if you realized how difficult it was for some parents to pay for certain things, then you would understand that he's complaining about A4 sheets because maybe his pocket cannot sustain it. But he makes mention of the fact that it was actually paid for. So when we have these conversations and people look at it from a very political slant, it becomes problematic. But we have Benjamin on the line. Ben, where are you calling from? Hello, Ben.
Yeah, I'm calling from Bawi.
All right, Ben, quick one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. My point is, why is the government denying this fact? Because we are hearing directly from the schools. You understand? I was with a very close friend of mine the other day, and the daughter calls from Wesley Girls High School, to be precise. And said, Daddy, we've been giving, they brought us the bags of rice, cooked as for us. And they've written on the bag, poultry feed.
They've written on the bags what?
Can you imagine?
Poultry feed.
Poultry feed?
Yes. Don't be surprised at all.
Poultry feed. And so the question is, what are the headmasters doing? Are they looking on for this food to be fed to the children? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do not know whether it was the food was rebagged and maybe, but even the fact that maybe that sack or whatever was used for poultry feed, and if you are even rebagging, I don't know. But I can't think far. The number is 0302 211 0302 211 Call through and let us know your concerns. The Education Ministry says they don't have a current supply shortage. But what is your situation? Let's go to Sam in Kumasi. Sam, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you so much for calling. What are your thoughts for us?
It looks like this whole issue has been going back and forth, but I believe that the media also has a role to play. If you can be the independent player who can investigate some of these things and bring it to light.
Which is what we're doing.
These are our taxpayers' money in the first place, and these are our awards and our future. So I would want to also ask that Dr. Park, if he can leave his contact so that we can share some information with him. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So at least two institutions we have here. Agona, I don't know whether it's Agona Swedru, but Agona Senior High School, and there's also Wesley Girls SHS. Imagine that. Even the psychological effect. Let's assume it is wholesome food, but you see that the rice that you are meant to consume has been labeled poultry feed. Every time you eat it, psychologically, you're going to be thinking there's something amiss. Why? We have Haruna now from Sunyane. Haruna, good morning.
Good morning, Akabu.
Right. Quick thoughts?
Thank you very much for having this wonderful program. I think we're deliberating. Free SHS is a very good policy. No one can deny that. But any system that is not ready for criticism is ready to fail. I repeat again, any system that is not ready for criticism is ready to fail. Because you can't do it alone. You have to get information from others to support yourself. Let me even leave the food side and other part and then draw your attention to one of the basic things that I think we're doing as a country, denying ourselves eating good. You see, food in our country is seasonal. And what I know about these free SHS is that we have fixed prices for food, whether it is each season or not. If you even put that aside, every region has the kind of food they are able to produce. So if I'm here in Sudan, and then there are a lot of maize and other places here, then somebody from Accra will bring maize from Sunyani. For me, I think it is not value for money. There should be an arrangement so that the local people will supply what they have to ease the pressure on government. I want to beg authorities.
It is not that somebody wants to bring the program down, because if you look at where I'm coming from, it is access that brought me to Sunyani. And for that matter, no one is saying access to education is bad. But we have to be ready to accept criticism so that we can all move together as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. We may pick maybe one or two more and then wrap in the studio. Sure. That is if those calls come through, if you're minded to share your thoughts. What is your reflection on all of these callers? Because I listen to what the Education Ministry is saying. I listen to the callers. They are diametrically opposed.
Well, I think that the callers are speaking to the reality on the ground. And as I said, and I keep saying, almost every other stakeholder in this republic agrees that there are challenges, except government, which admits but is very quick to adopt a defensive posture, and that is not helpful.
It's not helpful.
It's not helpful.
Let me go to Uncle Afo in Cape Coast. Uncle Afo, Memoachio, what are your thoughts for us?
Mpacho, I'll go into my local director, okay, Frantic.
Hello. You go ahead. It's got a month. It's okay.
Hello.
Go ahead, Uncle Afo. Uncle Afo, don't listen to yourself on the TV. There'll be feedback. Just go ahead and speak to me on the phone. Uncle Afo, are you there?
The good side of the SCHS. You to me and SCHS.
It appears we have a challenge there because he's listening to himself on the television instead of listening on the phone. So you'll have feedback, you'll have delays. When you call, listen on the phone. Lower the volume on your set. Listen on the phone, let's have a conversation. Mr. Moa. All right.
So the
final
point
thoughts.
I am making is that some of us have been speaking to this issue since 2017. Finally, we have a documentary that is confirming what we already know.
Right.
I've given you examples of Auditor General reports indicating the supply of unregistered food items, tin tomatoes. It says, Hila Liman Senior High School.
I'm sorry I have to do this again, but we'll pick the last caller and then I will not interrupt you again. Let's go to Samuel from Wa. Good morning, Samuel.
Hello.
Sanazwa.
Hello, this is Hamza calling from Wa.
Oh, it's Hamza rather.
Yes, for
all right.
Wa.
Hamza, what are your thoughts for us?
Yes. Listen to the man speaking.
Right.
He's a politician, but the way he speaks, it's like he has removed his political glasses before speaking. He just brings out the facts and everything. I want you to record that program for us so that in case they are also in opposition, he should do the needful.
Right.
Because he ended up by concluding that the money Akufo-Addo is using to run this free SHS is from the taxpayer. That is true.
Right.
If they also come, they should manage it well and make us feel the money we are paying that they have now come to use it well for our brothers. Just fast forward when this Ramadan was coming. We have to cook banku and send to school for our brothers. That's the reality on the ground. And the fact he also showed on TV and your distance, what is the name? The program you're about to air.
Right, the documentary.
That also comes to light that program. There's actually a problem with feeding. And yet the politician will come and tell us that there's nothing wrong with it. As if we are fools.
And I think that's a good point to conclude on, as though we were fools, right? So, Doc, he's saying you're speaking the facts, but, and I always hold you politicians to this, now you're in opposition. You're trying to get to power. If you come, and you do the same thing, we'll deal with you the same way.
Well, I can promise you that we will do better. And that is why we are calling for a national stakeholders forum. If it doesn't happen, when we come, we would initiate it. And some of the reforms that we are looking at introducing is to revert back to the old arrangement in as far as the food is concerned.
Right. So 1 minute for your concluding thoughts. What are you leaving us with?
Well, I would want to urge parents and the students to continue to speak up because the heads of our public secondary schools are encumbered for obvious fear of retribution. and sanctioning. So it has to take the parents, the students, and in fact, you, the media, and I must commend you, because what you have done, I don't know how you did it, but I know that to actually have access, to be able to get onto a secondary school campus, to do what you did, I give you a lot of commendation, because you have provided visual, concrete evidence to back what is already known and reported. And that is bound to compel government to admit the challenge. And that is the beginning of finding a solution. So we are ready, we are prepared, every stakeholder is prepared. Government should take advantage of what it told the IMF, that it will review and rationalize the free senior high school policy program and initiate the process now.
Okay.
If they choose not to do it and continue to dance around defining review as cancel and choose to use the word improve, when we assume the reins of power, we will do the needful in the interest of the country.
Dr. Park, thank you. Let me bring in, there's a last caller, you've made it through. Joe, somewhere in the Volta region. Where in the Volta region are you calling from, Joe?
South Dine constituency.
South Dine, okay. So what are your thoughts for us?
Please, my issue is that the PRO of the ministry should better explain what he meant by adequate supply. What is adequate? Is it the chicken they are eating? Is it the eggs the students are eating? Or is it the porridge that they are eating without bread?
Right.
So then what is adequate? The ministry should explain to us what is adequate.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you too. So adequate to know. HSA, when the ministry says adequate and the schools and the students are complaining, what does adequate mean? You can look forward to the airing of Empty Plates, the free SHS promise. It's already started airing on radio, Joy 99.7 FM, but on TV, this channel, it will be airing tonight at 8:30 p.m. You want to stay tuned for that. If you've had any doubts, we'll demystify the situation for you right here on this network with the visuals and everything. But right now, I'd like to thank the Deputy Ranking Member on the Education Committee of Parliament, Dr. Clement Apak. Doc, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Right.
And keep being pace setters.
That's what we do. We're primus inter pares, remember. But stay with us, because up next we're going to be contemplating, yes, we've all suffered from the internet downtime and all of that. The National Communications Authority, just re-echoing what others have said, says it may take about 5 weeks, a month and a week, for faulty undersea cables to be restored, bringing back stable connections in affected countries. We know countries in some parts of Europe, some parts of the Middle East, and some parts of Africa have been affected. But where do we go from here? We have a conversation on that up next on the AM show. Do stay. Taking a bow as we welcome you back to, yes, our all-new, brand spanking new studios. But we're having the conversation that affects you and affects me, affects all of us. It's all about the connectivity issues we faced in recent times. And joining us for a conversation on that, on the back of the National Communications Authority saying they'll need about 5 weeks. Of course, this is a global event. We have joining the conversation Desmond Israel. He's a lawyer and information security and data privacy practitioner. He joins the conversation. We have others that will raise along the line to join the conversation as well. Desmond, good morning. You may have to unmute, Desmond.
Yeah. Good morning. I got you, Akabu. How are you?
I am very well. I don't know whether you know that we go way back, especially to do with Robert, but that's a conversation we'll have off air. It's good to have you join the conversation this morning. Before you get into your slides, what is your appreciation of this problem and how we've dealt with it in Ghana?
All right. Okay. So I think, first of all, if you look at it in the grand scheme of things and with the probably resources available to us, we have taken it by the timing that we can. But the argument also holds that maybe we could have also looked at things differently, especially in terms of how well we probably would have prepared for this, if we are taking maybe certain steps earlier in time. But it's an event that we we did not anticipate.
Are you suggesting we got caught pants down on this one?
Pants down. Maybe as the event happened, it's probably exposed us in terms of our backbone to a critical information infrastructure. Our Cybersecurity Act is quite clear that these systems that support, essentials for economic activities, national security, and social well-being, need to be up. We didn't write these laws, so clearly, from the regulatory point of view, with all the regulatory stakeholders in place, one would have asked that, okay, what was our fallback plan? I've heard arguments that, okay, but we did have redundancy. We have 5 cables coming in and 4 is damaged. The other question is, how did we pick all our cables from a single landing site? Someone would discuss investment and whether we had the resources to put in place to kind of like duplicate sites or take alternatives. But that is where the issue is. That is where, as a country, we should be asking ourselves whether indeed we did prepare for these in the first place, or whether we've given these the critical, essential attention that it requires. I mean, I can use the US as an example, even though it's a much stronger economic power. In 2022, I guess, when the issue happened in Tonga, and in this time it was an earthquake and a volcanic eruption. So it cut off the island of Tonga from world communication. And that's when the US realized that, hey, we need to pay attention to this. We need to relook at how we are structuring, our cable access, landing sites, and the rest. So it's not like an event that people don't know had happened before. It happened in Egypt, where someone actually dived deep down there and cut off the fiber cable. So yeah, the world is aware of these things, and to be prepared to it means you should have foresight that this is a potential that can happen. You cannot for any reason say that, okay, we are okay, all these cables are coming from the same spot, they are hitting us at the same spot, we are fine, we have 4 cables, what could go wrong? 1 can go off, we could have 3 more. Today, 4 is down, and you have 1 supporting, probably part of the infrastructure for communication and information sharing. And I need not be the one to say, but these cables across the world,
right,
apparently about 1,036 of the landing sites in the entire world, and over 480 cables, under the sea, that is supporting 99% of the world's transaction. So it's not for me to say, it is for industry, the country, to realize that our lives at some point depends on this. Right. And we are required to give it a much broader, much more serious attention than probably we've given it all these while. That's not to say that people who have invested into this space have not done the appropriate thing, or the regulators have gone to sleep. This is an incident in time. And the question we are all asking ourselves is, did we prepare enough for this? Did we forecast enough for this? You and I know the answer. It's not for me to say. It is pretty clear.
Well, you are the specialist. I mean, you can tell us. Because listen, it appears we did not have all the boxes ticked. We didn't expect this. And some have even suggested that, look, I was just saying this morning, what if this had happened in the course of election 2024? Do you get it? How would we have dealt with it? Information flow, even for the use of biometric devices, communicating votes and all, it could have been catastrophic, So maybe it is good this is happening now, but it also exposes certain chinks in our data management armor, doesn't it?
It does. I absolutely agree with you. And I think you threw it more at me when you even used the case study of an election. That would have been a disaster. And I'm waiting for, different thought process to tell me that, oh, Desmond, you are wrong on this one. It couldn't have been that worse. That would have been a disaster. As we speak today, international remittances, financial reconciliation, people's online jobs, teleworking, remote connectivity, even family and social connections, influencers who are using some of these platforms to do their work have been heavily impacted. People are scrambling to jump onto the next available connectivity so they are able to get in there. I think that is the core of it. And let me throw this one in there. Is this not also challenging our quest for digitalization? It is. because the backbone of digitalization, indeed, is infrastructure. And one of the key infrastructure for that is what we are experiencing today, the backbone to the internet, commercial undersea telecommunication cables. And I've stated already, it controls 99% of the data flow of the world, the transactions that are happening under the sea. So you're right when you said that this could have been catastrophic if we're in an election year. It would have been chaotic.
Well, hopefully this teaches us the requisite lessons. But let's now get into your slides. The issue, of course, the countrywide disruption of internet connectivity. Walk us through your presentation.
Right. So what you have there is basically trying to bring our listeners to the real issues, so we don't have conversations in conjecture. So as you rightly say, we have a disruption of internet connectivity. So the question is, how did this come about? The suspicion is that we are dealing with a cable fault, which could be a damaged or a malformed cable. The cable in question is commercial undersea telecommunication cables. So they run under the deep sea and they come up to the coast. So the potential here is it could be a natural disaster, maybe an earthquake or landslides or rock slides. The coast of Abidjan, where these issues are happening, is actually known for some of these landslides. So my deep internal connection says that it's possible it's a natural disaster. I'm not too sure about that. But it could also be a human activity, i.e. fishing, anchoring, or maybe dredging. And then we have what they call the fish bites, which is usually about shark attacks. And then bad actors. This could actually be a terrorist attack if it's established.
Like the one you mentioned in Egypt. But when you say, for example, the human activity, so you're saying that a ship's anchor, for example, could mistakenly get that low, and when it's being pulled up, it could affect the cables, right?
Yes, exactly. That's the plausibility. There's no qualms about that. I'll show you another slide where the U.S. Congress, through their congressional research, has actually presented the statistics. And this image you are seeing is also coming from the Congressional Research Service of the United States. I mean, they actually do the background research in technology and then advise Congress on policy directions and the rest. So this is quite authoritative. So just for our viewers to know that this is what we're dealing with. This is the structure of an undersea telecommunication system. So on our left, we can consider it to be the Abidjan side of things. And then on our right, you can consider it to be the Accra side of things. In between it is that black cable that is running under the sea. Okay. So at each point, you have what they call the beach manhole, which is where termination happens. So termination is when the cable gets to its point of interconnection between the capacity builders and then the carriers. So the undersea cable owners are who we call the capacity builders. And then people like NTN and our main ones and the rest, they are what we call the carriers. So they kind of like move along with the data to come into the inland. There's a landing station there which hosts like a network device for channeling and then power and then the network management. And then it goes into what they call the point of presence, where you actually get the distribution through our fiber cables. And then telecoms people will be using the terminology last mile. Between the trunk and when it gets to you in your home, you have the telecoms in between, then that becomes your last mile. So this is a vivid understanding of what we have happening. So a landslide or a rock slide that happened on the landing station site of Abidjan could easily affect communication. And that is what the suspicion is. In the same way, if it was a terrorist attack, in the same way, if it was a human activity like fishing or dredging, and if it's a low bed and it affects the cable, it could just create a wear and tear on the cables. Let me just move on to the next slide. What's the probability that this could happen? I threw in this myself. So let's look at the 10-year period. Now, in the event where we have optimal conditions, so for instance, minimal environmental risk, and then we are doing careful maintenance, this could happen 1 in 1,000.
Once in 1,000 times.
Once in 1,000 times, exactly. So just for our listeners to know that it's a world event, but there are certain risk calculations attached to it.
So that's like 0.1, because 1 in 100 is 1%. So that would be like 0.1%, something like that.
Excellent math. That's perfect. And then if we have a low probability will be when there are typical conditions. So 1 in 100 for every 10 years. So for instance, if we have minor seismic activities around the landing, the landing station or at the seabed, then we could have a 1 in 100 possibility with the fishing activities and natural wear and tear. Natural wear and tear is also known as suspension and abrasion. And then you have the moderate probability, which is 1 in 50, that could happen if the region is indeed prone to a lot of, natural disasters, like earthquakes and underwater slides. And like I said, because Abidjan was mentioned and I did my little research, I can tell you that Abidjan is a place that you possibly can have landslides. So these are some of the risk factors we would want to consider when we are looking at the solution. How do we diversify? Do we need all 4 cables coming from there, because glow doesn't come from that landing. So, and then finally on the high probability will be 1 out of 10 if the situation is extreme. So these things are workable, and I think listeners need to be educated on that these are possibilities, and that is why as a country we want to look at how we also, engage in setting up some of these infrastructure. Yes, they are private investments. Indeed, 65% of the world's undersea cables are actually single-owned, and 33% is actually known to be owned by consortiums. Just about 2% is state-owned. So if you look at the statistics and the investment, indeed, it's a private investment, it's private ownership. But the US and other countries have proven that if you have a stronger regulatory relationship, both internationally and with these private players, you could get to actually, from a national security point of view, you could get how these maintenance are done and how these implementations are done, so that it does not impact your economic activities largely. A case in point is what Ghana is experiencing now.
Quick one before you proceed, lest I forget. There are different suppliers, let me call them that, distributors or owners of this infrastructure, ACE among others. What is best practice? Because like you've mentioned, some of them are on one system and 4 cables are down. It means you've basically been cut out. What is the practical thing to do? Use one entity or use multiple entities?
You'd use multiple entities. I mean, someone could argue today that we have multiple entities. We have WACS, we have ACE, we have SAT3. One would have said that there's no way we would have had all of them gone down at the same point. But the issue here we are looking at is the landing station. This didn't happen at the landing station. So it means all these 10 cables come to Abidjan at one point and then distribute to us. I have another slide that would even give you a more graphical representation of how the cables came into Accra. And so in the same way, cables that are in Accra are hitting one landing station. So let's assume something happened in Accra that affects that landing station. The same scenario would have happened. So experts will say diversify your landing station. So these are some of the measures you can
which means we've not done that. We have a single landing station in Accra. We've not diversified the landing station.
No, we've not diversified. We have a single landing station in Accra. We have a single landing station in Abidjan. Of course, from all the previous assessment they may have done, like I said, they would never have anticipated, or probably have given the very negligible anticipation that there could be an impact that could affect all 5 cables at one single landing station. But information security, critical national infrastructure, at least today, do not operate like that. You operate with the worst case scenario in mind. And that is what we have on our hands.
So now, as a data privacy practitioner, would you propose that in the case of Ghana, for example, it is needed, especially considering we're in an electoral year and there could be this again, should we have another landing station? Is that your proposal?
We should diversify. In fact, on my last slide, I have a number of proposals. I have a short term, the medium term, and the long term. And yes, I do agree that we should, but it is the investment that determines whether you can do these things. So a landing station is actually part of your long term or your tail end of your medium term to do it, because it's an investment. How you have to reroute these cables, they are not cheap. The operators have profit making in mind, but how strong is your regulatory regime to make a case that your national backbone, your economic activities, your national security, social well-being of your citizens are routed through this cable, and therefore you have a stronger interest in how these cables are diversified? That is the question we have to answer as a country. All
right, so let's go ahead with your presentation then.
Okay, so this is where I just give a breakdown again using a congressional research. I just give a breakdown of the possibility of cable faults. So I'll just move on from there because we've explained it. But it's interesting to know that 40% of the issues that happened between 1959 and sometime, check my dates, well, 2021 has to do with phishing activities. So we move on from here. So how is Ghana affected? I think this is where everybody is probably more interested. So we have 5 of these cables coming in and giving us capacity through the carriers. And then we have 3 WACS, ACE, and main one, and then GLO. These are the cables. But 4 out of the 5 are all down, except GLO 1, okay? And GLO is not affected because GLO is not coming through the Abidjan landing station. GLO is a cable that comes all the way from the United Kingdom to Accra and then splits to Lagos. And the reports, from some of the very credible sources is saying that this is a potential natural disaster, an act of God. So underwater rock slide may have affected this, but these are yet to be confirmed. So in-house, it is only 80, formerly Airtel Tigo, they are the only ones who have a capacity from the last mile coming in because GLO 1 is not affected. Now, this is telegeography. It's one of the authoritative sources when it comes to speaking about undersea cables. At least viewers could see from my right, below right, you could see the country stated there is Accra. The cables that are coming in are 5, the original 5 that I mentioned, which is Africa Coast to Europe, the ACE, GLO 1, main one, and then SAT3, WACS, and then WACS itself. But at the top, you will see a 2024 cable, which is not typically mentioned. This is the to Africa. This cable is coming all the way from the end coast of the United Kingdom and is hitting us. It is a cable that was originally laid by Facebook and some of its members in this consortium. And some people are making a case that it could even be the reason why Facebook is kind of streaming well. But I think there's more technical discussions to that as to whether any of the carriers is picking that. I'm not too sure. But this is the structure that we have. All the lines that we see on our screen on my immediate left are the cables and where they are coming in and how they get in. So you can see that Accra, Ghana down there receives a number of these cables which have been legend with different colors. And that's the situation that we have in terms of the cabling. So let's talk about what happened. So on the 14th of March, we have this report from NetBlocks. NetBlocks is one of the organizations that is monitoring the use of the internet and making sure about net neutrality and internet access and internet blackouts and the rest. So this pretty much fell into their domain and they are an authority on the subject. So they gave us this chart. So you guys can see that we have different levels of impact when the cables went down, depending on who is connected to the landing site. You could see Abidjan suffered it severely. That's because that's their landing site and that's their landing station. And the impact was right there. And then Ghana comes in somewhere along the line where our impact was hit by 20% to 24%. So that's what we're getting in terms of connectivity that was coming into the country. So clearly, we've been affected. This may change over time because it's been 4 days now. I haven't seen the new post from NetBlocks concerning the statistics on the capacity that we are getting. But if this is anything to go by, then clearly this is why Ghanaians are suffering connectivity issues as we speak now. I think I can just wrap up with my way forward, and then maybe I can now take your questions.
Go ahead. So briefly on that, so we can make tracks.
Right, sure. Thank you. So here you are with, I have 3 options that I put in. So in my short term, I'm looking at what they call pulling or peering. Now, this is because currently GLO is working. GLO 1 is fine, it's active. So you would expect that the other carriers would be able to peer to GLO 1, but I concede. This is subject to peering agreements and capacity. Now, I've heard capacity arguments that, well, GLO doesn't have the capacity to go, blah, blah, blah. I bet to differ a bit, and maybe if a later expert has a different opinion, that's fine. But at this point, I bet to differ. This is the reason why. GLO carries a 2.5 terabits per second, and it splits between just Ghana and Accra, right? The total capacity of the 4 cables that we are talking about is approximately 6 terabits per second. And according to telegeography, the amount of inbound bandwidth that has been coming into Ghana as at 2020, and if within the 4 years it's changed capacity, then that's fine, is 1 terabyte. So my guess is this: Glo would have enough capacity for peering to be done amongst service providers for us to achieve these things. I'll tell you why peering is important. If you look at some of the regulatory suggestions that have been made over time, peering is one of the best practices that has been put forth on the table by people like the ITU. But before I get there, the second option is for us to fix this ASAP within the 5 weeks. We can discuss that based on questions that you are going to ask me. And then the medium term, my proposal is this. And I know a lot of experts have discussed it at work. We need to have our own internal local, what they call internet protocol exchange, and have what they call hosted data centers enough to have content distribution networks. These will allow us to host some of the internet connection in terms of content, right? Like your Facebook, your Google, and the rest. We'll host them in country. It's called caching, and it will reduce the amount of time or access we need on international connection. It indeed would be a very good backbone when it comes to issues like this. Another medium-term requirement that I would say is that we should encourage the provisioning of alternative sources like satellite services. People have spoken about Starlink and the rest. This is something we really need to pay attention to. Even if we don't want Starlink, we need to look at alternative service provisioning. My long-term proposal is that, first of all, regulator needs to sit up and start to look at how we get our cable protection standards.
When you say regulator, what do you mean? National Communications Authority?
Yes, without any doubt of who the regulator is. It's the NCA. The NCA must come in clear with all the other government functionaries, look at it from a national security point of view, and ascertain what is going to be our cable protection standards. What is the protection zone? What are the special separations that we need? Can we consider cable hotspots like places that you're going to have terrorist attacks, places that are prone to natural disasters? We also need to look at alternative landing stations. You've asked me a number of questions on these already. Diversify. And then, of course, we can explore terrestrial cabling, which is trying to get the cabling in-house. There's a downside to that, and I will concede there's a downside to that. But if it's an option that would help us to deal with a situation like this, then we need to look at it. And then finally, as I mentioned with the ITU, they have what they call the open access architecture. And this is where peering mandates, the regulator can leverage on peering mandates and also regulatory backed interoperability, so that if one goes down, the other can jump on. I'm sure if we have a strong peering mandate, probably on the day that it happened, that it became clear to us that 4 cables were down, all service providers will probably be, running through to Glo 1. I don't know what the peering agreements are. I don't know what the peering mandates are. I don't know what our cable protection standards are. If we do have them and we're still 4 days down, then that's a very big question of how we set these structures up.
Right.
That will be the end of my presentation.
All right, so thank you for making that presentation. Some quick questions I'd like to run by you. One, should the NCA be doing more as of this point in time? Yes, they've told us we can look forward to this being resolved in a matter of about 5 weeks. Should they and can they be doing more?
I think by now they're probably most likely looking at how soon they get the undersea cable repair going. 5 weeks is possible, but is 5 weeks okay for all of us as a country? Do we have to wait 5 weeks? I think probably they should also be hammering on the pooling and peering. Maybe they are doing that. I don't work inside the NCA, so I will not be able to say if it's something they are doing. But if it's not something they are doing, then I will not understand why that is not being done. We have a national issue. This is a cyber incident, actually. It's not a cyber attack, but it's a cyber incident because your critical information infrastructure is leveraged on this backbone. Yes, and you are down. It's absolute disruption. People are not getting access, or you have terrible access. If you make these admissions, then the regulator must step in and say that.
Hello, Desmond.
But then the complexity of, okay, what's the peering agreement? Is there a peering mandate? Am I supposed to allow somebody to come through my wire? What are the implications? People might also be taking advantage to discuss profits, right? who's going to pay me if I merge you on. If we have done these structures well, probably the upstream, as in these capacity holders, may have enough reason to allow some level of peering mandates to happen in such a situation. I mean, no country wants to come to its knees because infrastructure is managed by private owners. Not at all.
All right, so that's one solution, and more pointers to what the NCA could be doing to alleviate our situation. But I have this interesting picture. Consider LEOs, lower Earth orbit satellites. I remember sometime, was it last year or so, Rwanda, had a satellite launched and all of that. That could be a cheaper, more efficient, more effective way of latching onto by way of communications. We wouldn't be facing what we are now if we had that. And it's a cheaper option. What do you know about that? And why do you think we are not even tapping into that?
Again, I think the biggest problem of Ghana has always been investment. And we try to shy away from having that conversation. We spend on a lot of things. And forgive me if I say we even spend on things that are useless, things that don't even bring any value to the country in the long term. How many wastes have we not been able to outline over the years? Easy for me to say. Everybody knows this. We need to sit down and start to assess our investments into some of these things. LOEs are good. They can even just be the backbone of some of our alternative communication and support. Right. The NCA laws are quite clear on who gives license and who does what. Government is in charge. If government wants to set up an entity to be able to do this, so be it. But, experts would ask me questions like, have you seen Vodafone? Is that not Ghana Telecom? Was it not a government investment? So it goes back to, are you able to manage these things on your own? We should be able to hold some of these things. This is a wake-up call. I mean, there's no other way else to say it. It is a wake-up call. LEOs lower orbit satellites are great, depending on how we want to look at it. Where do we want to plug it into the grand scheme of things? What do we want to own as a country? What do we want to cherish? What do we want to say if things go bad as Ghana, we would still be able to survive.
And holding you briefly there, I believe that is where the devil is, because we want to outsource everything. So you look, for example, at AT. Yes, well, now we have a local, content on that. For a long time, that wasn't the case. You look at Telecel, what used to be Vodafone, and we have 30% stake in it. But generally, when it comes to telecommunications, if something were to happen right now and they were to say, we are packing our bags and we're leaving, we'll be crippled. So investing in critical information infrastructure. What should this teach us moving forward? Beyond the landing sites and all of that, what should this really teach us?
Stronger regulatory regime, which has a national interest focus. And I'm not going to say anything more. Stronger regulatory regime, which has the national interest focus. The United States did it. They came up with a number of things. I actually wrote down a few things. I know it's not the center of the conversation, but probably these will came up, and it did. The U.S. went into what they call a review of ownership interest. And it has nothing to do with the U.S. putting money in there. It has everything for the U.S. to say, our lives depend on what you're going to do as a private investor, and this is the best way forward. The U.S. did it. They also went into what they call restricted untrusted equipment use. Equipments that are out of date, that are put at landing sites that could create problems for them. They ensure that these things were removed. They also ensure that in case a landing station becomes an adversary, they were not going to be affected. So let me ask you a more controversial question. If Cote d'Ivoire should go rogue on us tomorrow, and don't tell me it wouldn't happen, because we don't know what happens in the future. But if Cote d'Ivoire goes rogue on us in the future, four of your undersea cables lands there. Didn't we have an arbitration with them over seabed?
We did, and that came to mind when you started talking. But even imagine this. Yes. We've had a lot of coup d'etats in the sub-region, God forbid. But let's say some country where we have these landing sites, right, they are affected. And the military says, you know what, you people, you've not been acting nice to us. So we're going to truncate what then happens to us?
And that is why I mentioned the U.S. scenario. And I can't give you a better scenario. I'm here, I'm doing my research here. They have best case scenarios, they have best practices. I can only leverage on that. It might take us a while to get there, but I'm saying that the thing that I have figured out is there's a stronger regulatory regime with a national interest focus. It has nothing to do with private investors owning everything and deciding how it's going to happen. If you own an infrastructure which has the life of citizens sitting on it, you don't have a say alone. And that's a fact.
All right. Well, I guess there's a whole lot more we can do, NCA and everything in between. Desmond, thank you so much for joining the conversation. And that has been our conversation with Desmond Israel. He's a lawyer and information security and data privacy practitioner. But let's look at this. We've mentioned elections, for example. Let's broaden the spectrum and look at the implications on national security. Joining us now, we have Sam Jatta George. He's Member of Parliament, Ningo Pram Pram, and a Member of Parliament's Communications Committee. Mr. George, good morning.
Good morning, Benjamin. Good morning to your viewers.
It's good to have you. How have you received all of this that has been happening? Lack of internet connectivity. At some point, even voice calls were impacted. At a point, even text messages wouldn't go. How have you fared over these last few days?
Well, it's unfortunate, but we have to say the chickens have come home to roost. We've been talking about poor regulatory framework and a lack of focus on the main critical national information infrastructure in the country, and people had said we were doing politics with it. People at the regulator, people at the ministry felt that we were simply doing politics. But I think that this has exposed our lack of preparedness as a country. This has exposed the lack of regulatory framework at the NCA. And this has exposed the fact that literally our regulator is not regulating and working in the interest of the Ghanaian people, but is working for the bottom line of the telecom operators.
But wait, when you put the NCA, the National Communications Authority, in that light, they have come to tell us that we have 5 weeks and likely there will be some restoration or normalcy when it comes to the service we were enjoying. Then you make them appear to not be doing anything. Is that what you're suggesting?
But the NCA is not doing anything. Holding a meeting with subsea cable operators, and the subsea cable operators telling you that the earliest we can do this is 5 weeks, and you putting out a statement to say that, well, the operators say they can do this in 5 weeks. What have you done?
At least they've had a meeting. They've had communication. You know, these things can't be rushed. They are technical stuff.
We can get any secretary anywhere in the world to call a meeting of people and take down the minutes and do a report for us. That's not what we pay the regulator for.
What would you have expected? What would you have expected from the NPA?
If you look at how If you look at how regulators in Côte d'Ivoire, and you see, I listened to the last part of your earlier conversation. It's not entirely correct that Côte d'Ivoire on its own could wake up and compromise Ghana in that manner, because there are different landing points. But basically, it's a loop that's been created. So if there's a problem in one loop, all that has to be done is a rerouting of the loop can be done. And that's what's happened even in Côte d'Ivoire, where the cable landing points have been impacted. Because they have an alternate cable landing point by a network operator called Move, you've immediately seen pooling of resources. And so even in Côte d'Ivoire, the access to internet has remarkably improved over the last 24, 48 hours. Comparing that to Ghana, there is no improvement. The regulator is just telling us that, well, the guy says it's going to take 5 weeks, so we have to wait. You don't see any directive from the NCA. The NCA statement, and don't tell me they've given a directive. If they gave a directive, it should have been encapsulated in their public statement. In their public statement, you've not seen any regulatory directive being issued at the regulators saying to them that, well, if it's going to take 5 weeks from when you can mobilize, and let's be clear, the statement did not say 5 weeks from when the statement was issued. It's 5 weeks from when the subsea cable repair ships can be mobilized. I know that two of those ships have been mobilized by two of the operators, I think Wax and Ace. But the point is, they're just reporting what the regulators, the operators are saying. What's the regulator's own intermediary action by way of policy directives to the telco saying, well, if this is happening at this point in time and you give a 5 weeks time, then what happens to the customers who the regulator is supposed to protect in the 5 weeks? That statement was silent on that. Absolutely no direction.
Do you think that was a failure on the part of the NCA?
I don't think, I know. It's a failure. It's a clear failure because, look, the NCA's job as a regulator primarily is to protect the interest of customers of the telco.
Right.
Not to protect the interest of the telco.
So in this instance, you feel they are not defending the ordinary Ghanaian or the ordinary person in Ghana, the customers of the telcos.
You've seen 4 releases from the NCA. Can you point out to me any line, any sentence in any of the 4 releases so far by the NCA that points to customer protection? That protects your rights as a telecoms customer in Ghana. The NCA has basically the NCA is actually struggling and competing with the Ghana Chamber of Telecoms.
Right.
The Chamber of Telecoms is an advocacy group for the telecoms companies.
Right.
My big brother Ken Ashigbe runs that chamber currently as CEO, and the job of the chamber is to advocate the rights and interests of the telcos. The job of the regulator is to advocate, protect, and defend the rights of the customer. But now you have the NCA competing with the Chamber of Telecoms to put out the narrative of the telco.
So let me get this clearly.
That's unfortunate.
Has the NCA failed in that regard, in protecting our interests?
Certainly. There's no nicer way to put it, especially when you see how other regulators are using regulatory tools in Nigeria, in Ivory Coast, even in Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone comes to Ghana to learn from us. And you see how the regulators there are taking proactive steps in the last 48 hours to improve the capacity in country. Ghana is still sitting at barely 10% on WAC and 10% on Main 1. The same Main 1 that serves Ghana serves Nigeria. How is it that Main 1 has almost restored full capacity to Nigeria? It's the same cable loop that runs through Abidjan, lands in Accra, lands in Lomé, and lands in Lagos. How is it that they've been able to reroute capacity through and bypass the Abidjan problem to make sure that Nigeria has enough capacity? And they've skipped Accra.
Well,
and this is a player landing in Ghana. So what's the NCA saying to them?
Right. And there are questions to be answered there. Of course, I hear of people who have lost jobs, remote jobs on the back of this, who work virtually, among other consequences. For us in the media, for example, it's been pretty delicate a situation.
You know, Benjamin, one group that's not been spoken about well enough is the young fintech group ecosystem in Ghana.
Right.
The fintechs have been heavily impacted because, you see, many of them are payment service providers. Their payment service gateways are sitting in servers outside the country, but they communicate through their aggregators here in Ghana. And the payment service gateways here in Ghana. Many of them, look, and people, I don't want to mention companies, but many of the top payment platforms, these are young fintechs. People who use those apps will tell you that since Thursday, since Friday, they've not been able to make payments. They've not been able to do anything. People are supposed to send money through those platforms to mothers and fathers and grandparents to buy critical medication. They can't send the money. And it's not because, and nobody's really thinking about how this is affecting this payment service providers, this fintech. This is a small ecosystem that we're looking to grow as a country. And that's why, for me, it must go beyond the rhetoric of digitalization and digitization to what exactly are you doing in critical times like this to ensure that the people who are the real drivers of our digital economy, who have been most adversely impacted, because many of them have contracts with foreign remittance companies, like Remitly, like Western Union. And you have people, clients from the UK, from the US, from Europe, trying to do remittances, and these Ghanaian payment service providers are literally failing on their SLAs. because they have SLAs with all of these foreign partners that they have. And 96 hours down the line, many of them are unable to process payments. Do you know what that does to their contracts? Do you know how many impact, what the kind of impact, how many fintechs are going to be impacted and possibly go down because the regulator is not thinking about this critical space to see what you can do to step in? It's sad.
Sam George, we're grateful for your time with us on this all-important matter. And right before you go, though, I just want a quick response on this, very quickly. So as Communications Committee of Parliament, what are you doing about this? What do you expect to do?
But we have a briefing with the minister on a different issue tomorrow. And I'm sure that we are going to step down whatever issue it is to the back burner because it's on ICT policy and all of that. That will have to step down on the back burner. And she needs to give us a proper brief tomorrow before we go into whatever she wanted to meet with us on, which had already been scheduled for tomorrow. So hopefully tomorrow we'll get some concrete answers out of the minister by way of policy direction from the ministry on the way forward.
Sam George, thank you very much. Sam George is Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram Pram. He's a member of Parliament's Communications Committee. He just joined the conversation there. Earlier, we also had Desmond Israel on that matter. But speaking of which, moving off from there, our next conversation, it isn't the first time that in the trade fair we've had some demolitions happen. Well, another one just happened, the Fantasy Dome, and we're asking questions about how it did happen. Well, on the ground, from right there, Sweetie Abochi, my colleague, is on hand to walk us through what exactly is happening there this morning. Sweetie, if you can hear me, what exactly has been transpiring at the Fantasy Dome?
Unique edifice, the Fantasy Dome, which had a 20,000 seating capacitor for events, festivals, and all sorts of activities, which has become or was known as one of the most prominent event centers here in Accra. What you see here is the result of a demolition activity. And I'm here with the CEO of Fantasy Dome or Fantasy Entertainment, Mr. Leslie Queno. Mr. Leslie, join me here. What we see here must come as a big blow to you. Now, we know that the Trade Fair Center gave you the lease to put up this edifice 5 years ago. The lease ended December last year. First week of December last year. Okay, last week in December last year. What happened that was irreconcilable, for which reason your business is in shambles now?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity, and this is a big blow not just for me but for the whole industry, the entertainment industry, because we need places like this. But to answer your question, when my lease ended, I am in the process of relocating, and obviously this is a huge edifice. It's not something you just pick up and relocate. I've been looking for land. I need up to 4 to 5 acres of land to go to, and I've found a couple of places, especially the University of Legon. We're in the final stages of negotiating the lease, so I requested a 60-day extension from the trade fair, if they can let me get that so I can have time to finalize my lease and relocate it. The CE wrote me a letter stating that they will not extend the lease for 60 days, and they are taking possession of the land as of January 1st, and so that was it. So I did what any law-abiding citizen or business would do. I went to court and I requested a writ to stop her, so she give me access to my property to remove it, but also give me enough time so I can relocate. So we were able to get a writ of injunction. We got a writ, and we also got an injunction for them not to damage the property. We've been trying to serve them for a whole month. We finally, about 2 weeks ago, did substituted services, so they were served. It was pasted all over the offices. They're fully aware of it. So unfortunately, the next court date is April 18th. We're waiting to go to court for the judge to give us a way forward. I just needed time to relocate, and honestly, by the end of this month, I would have relocated because I'm in the final stages of my lease arrangement with UJL to relocate to.
So your lease ended. You wrote to the CEO for an extension, and they refused, and then you went to court for an injunction. You served them this injunction, this writ, and they said what?
They have not responded. They just went quiet. I mean, this is the first response I got from them. And unfortunately, it's very sad because there are several ways to do this. In Ghana is a country of laws. You cannot distract or even evict anyone without a court order. You cannot destroy anyone's property without a court order. So the question is, how can you destroy this property without a court order? I mean, forget the fact that there's an injunction, which there is. I mean, how do you still do this and use national security as your protection to do this? And that's what's sad for me as a Ghanaian businessman, is that in today's age, we can just break into people's property with bulldozers using national security operatives and just destroy property and claim it's an eviction. Does this look like an eviction to you? I mean, is this an eviction? I mean, is this what you do to evict people in Ghana?
Well, you mentioned national security. Yeah. How sure are you that they're the ones who came to demolish this place?
Because unfortunately, on the day of, my security tried to reach me, but I kept calling them back, but they were not responding. When I got here, there were national security operatives. The gentleman here claims his name is Captain Frimpong. He said he's here to protect the trade fair workers doing the demolition and protect them. And apparently what they did, the reason my security could not reach me to get here faster was because they took their phones away from them. Not only did they take their phones from them, but they held them captive under the tree. So they were moved away from the property and they took their phones. And I don't know how national security operates in this way, in which you are there to protect somebody doing a demolition, but then you take away the security phone so they cannot alert the proper owner to respond accordingly. And they're fully aware there's a writ, there's an injunction on the property, and I don't know why they will aid them. And where is Ghana police? I mean, isn't this law of order? If you have a valid court order, a valid court documentation, isn't Ghana police the one that should be here supervising whatever you do? I mean, we're a country of laws, and we should not just let these things just happen. Because how are we supposed to invest and bring millions of dollars into this country if somebody can just get national security and just knock your building down and then tell you they're evicting you? That's not the way we should work in Ghana. We should respect the laws, which is what I did. I went to court. I got an injunction, and that's what any businessman should do. We should never resort to violence, to destruction, because that's not what a developed country, a country that wants to develop does. We should be a country of law, we should respect law, and we should adhere to the law.
This was a 20,000-seater capacity building, edifice, event center. I've seen cameras on the floor. I've seen the air conditioners, huge air conditioners all over the place, cameras. What is the estimated damage?
So this facility was not just an event center. I did one level above. It was also a production house. I mean, we actually have a couple of shows here that were filmed. The Boss Game Show. I mean, some of Instroma, some of those things. This is where we filmed it. But I also have equipment. I mean, in these rooms back here was storage equipment of LED screens, stages, lights, sound equipment. So we were a full production house. And as you can see, they just knocked it, and everything is broken. And it's just and that's sad, because at the very least, I could have had some time to remove my production equipment. I mean, the interface itself obviously is very expensive. I mean, the cost of putting up this whole infrastructure was close to $5 million, and that's because I had close to 80 bathrooms. I mean, I had dressing rooms, I had green rooms, but more importantly, just the floor we're standing on cost close to $2 million. The trade fair, because of its proximity to the ocean, is all clay. And obviously, to be a safe edifice, I had to dig 2.5 meters, extract all the clay, fill it with laterite, and that's what made the cost so exorbitant. But that's because I wanted to do the right thing and do safely. Because if you're going to have 15,000, 10,000, 5,000 people jumping and being happy, you don't want them to die because the clay caves in. And to do the right thing and to just be destroyed, demolished, or whatever the legal way they want to use for this is very sad, and I'm still in shock.
What reasons did they really give you for which reason they wanted to evict you from this place after the work you put in to ensure that this place is habitable?
The reason is that they're doing a redevelopment of Trade Fair, and I understand it's a valid.
That's the building there that they're trying to construct more facilities for?
They are reconstructing the whole trade fair. Obviously, I don't know the plan. I don't have any idea of what they are trying to achieve. But, I mean, it might be a valid cause. And I respect that, because Ghana needs to develop and the trade fair needs to be developed. And I support that. But my only problem is do things the legal way. Do things the right way. I've been here for 5 years. I mean, they could have asked me to be part of the redevelopment, right? They could have said, Leslie, you spent $5 million, maybe maybe to fit into the redevelopment, maybe put glass around your edifice. It might cost you $1 million. But for me to relocate this could be another $3-4 million because I have to do the ground, I have to do facilities. So it doesn't make any sense. But I wasn't part of it. Fine. I was going to leave because, you know, that's the choice they made. And I found a place to go to. But to come here and demolish my structure without any kind of warning, without any kind of pretense while we're in court is my problem with the Ghana Trade Fair.
What's the way forward, considering that an estimated $5 million has gone waste?
Yes, I mean, that was an investment 5 years ago. But I unfortunately, the way forward is obviously we have to go back to court. I mean, this is contempt of court. I mean, we have to go back and file contempt charges because, I mean, we had an order for them to not do this and they did exactly this. So we'll go back to court and file that. I also want the Ghana police to file a complaint because I would like to know who's responsible for this. Right.
So the Ghana police was not here with the national security when this activity...
The Ghana police was not here at all. I can tell you on authority that I was the one that made a call to request Ghana police because they are the only law enforcement body that I know in Ghana, and they came here, and when they came they were asking the national security operative questions, which actually what prompted the bulldozers to move away from the property and their answer was they're here to protect the trade fair workers, which was silly, but that was the official position. Ghana police was definitely not here, and if they were, they might have been hiding under the bushes or somewhere. But I went and filed a complaint at the Lab District Police. They were not aware of this exercise, and actually they're also going to do an investigation and follow up. But I would like Ghana police to come on a response because, you know, if they are the one that uphold law and order and they're supposed to protect us, you know, are there any agencies that can override their authority and do things? I would like to get that answer. But I also want them to fully investigate and bring people that caused this, you know, to justice.
I'll come back to you, but I want to get an eyewitness recount of exactly what took place. I understand you were here. There's another gentleman. Please join me here. You were here when the security personnel arrived here. When they got here, he's your security officer. Please come closer to me. When they got here, what did they say to you? And take us through the procedure to taking your phones, letting you sit down. I don't know whether they tied your hands, whatever happened. Give us a recount of the activities that led to this and your inability to reach your boss.
Okay, thank you so much. Listen, on Saturday, around 9, I was in the dome, and then I saw people surrounding around the dome, and then I went out and I saw that it was the national security people. Already one man called Captain Frimpong came whilst I was on duty last week Monday, and then he came and told me that this building need to the time for the duration is up.
Yeah.
Yes, please. So I should just tell my boss and then inform him. And he even asked of my boss line, but I wasn't the line that I have was inactive. So I told him that if there's any information, you just need to give it to me so that I'll let my boss know. So on that particular day, which is Saturday, they came and then shake the door, and then I approached them that what they are doing is not appropriate, because if something get damaged, I'll be held very responsible for that. And then they say, who am I to question them? And then I asked them, may I know actually what's going on here, because I have no idea of. Yeah, and then they said there's no answer for that. And then they said I should bring my phones and my laptop, and then they took it, and then I wasn't able to say anything because I am afraid that maybe if I go further, they might do something. Yes, please. Yes, please. So yeah, then afterward they told me that I should just distance myself because they're about to destroy the place.
So there was no Ghana police officer here. It was just a national security.
Yes, please. There's no national police service over here.
Right.
Yes.
Did they manhandle you though? Did they use force on anybody here?
No, please. No, please.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Kweno. Now that we are going, you say you are going back to court because this is obviously something that the judiciary needs to address. What would be your demand when you go to court? What are you looking to get from court proceedings as an appeasing,
Well, I think it's whatever is equitable in the laws of Ghana, right? I didn't do this business. I mean, I'm a businessman, but because of my love for the entertainment industry, I support artists, award shows, TV. I do everything in this industry. I've been doing this for over 25 years, and it's because of my love for it. I've lost a lot of money doing all the major stadium events, and I just do this for this. And I just want the court to make sure that it's not even for me to recoup my investment any longer. It's for this not to happen to any further investment into the entertainment industry, because we're suffering, right? It's very few of us that can do this, and to destroy people like us, you're destroying future investors into the entertainment industry. And Ghana needs entertainment spaces. I mean, every question they ask of the Ministry of Tourism is always, we don't have enough entertainment. But then you have the largest in Ghana, but then you destroy it. So what are we trying to do? So honestly, I want the courts to protect and make sure that people like the National Security or any other landlords cannot destroy entertainment spaces that can be used to benefit Ghana and Ghanaian artists and the Ghana artist industry.
Since this demolition on Saturday, have you heard from the Trade Fair Center authorities? Have you heard from anyone reached out to you to say, let's talk about it?
No, not at all. And actually the worst part is they just destroyed it. And I think they've left some national security operatives who keep telling me that they're here to make sure that they're here to protect my property, which is insane because they destroyed it to stay around to make sure no one steals it. So they're telling me they are going to help me make sure that no one steals it, which is insane because, I mean, look at this. Is this the concern? If you're worried about my well-being and my property, you would not have destroyed it. You would have made sure I relocated. You should have made sure maybe the Ministry of Tourism got a hold of me and we found a place to put this to benefit Ghana instead of raising it down so somebody has to spend another $5 million. No one will do that anymore if this is how you're going to behave in a country that we're supposed to be of law.
If they could hear you right now, what would you say to them?
To the Ghana Trade Fair? I'll say to the Ghana Trade Fair, I wish you all the best. And maybe what you're doing might help in the future, but you have to follow the rules of law. You cannot act as a banana republic. We are in a democratic country with laws. And Ghanaians, just because we are very sober and we are very respectful, does not mean you should take advantage of us. We should respect our laws, regardless of what government it is, regardless of what political party you are. Do it. We should stop that, and that's what I'll say to the Trade Fair. Follow laws of Ghana.
Thank you, Mr. Kwenu, for shedding more light on this issue for us. Well, so there you have it, the remains of the dome, the fantasy dome here at the Trade Fair Center, which was demolished on Saturday by the Ghana Trade Fair Center, but actually done by the National Security, according to Mr. Leslie Kwenu. And he says his lease was had expired, but he'd written to them to give him some time to move out, to relocate. He'd already been in conversation, in talks with some people at University of Ghana to move this facility there, but it appears they weren't patient enough. And although there was an injunction served, a writ was served to them to put a hold on this eviction or demolition, they still went ahead on Saturday to demolish this place. This was once a 20,000-seater capacity event center, one of Ghana's prominent ones here at La Trade Fair Center. So this is what we have for you this morning. Benjamin, if you're still with me, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Sweetie Abochi. Not exactly the best of situations with that businessman, but we'll keep an eagle's eye on that matter and bring you whatever is related to it. It actually reminds me of the Raymond Archer incident. Do you remember? Same place, the Trade Fair Center, and his own place, publishing space, was also demolished. But moving on from there, this is where we actually sew it up on the AM show in our all-new studio. This is where we could do some, enjoy the new studio. We'll be showing you different spaces. But for now, we're taking you to that Eastern Camp adventure as we wrap the show. Eastern Camp adventure. It took place over the weekend, and there was so much to see and so much to do. Maxwell Agbagba was with them. That guy has been chilling, pal. I have to learn from him. Well, he was with them every step of the way and came through with this. Enjoy as we cap off the AM show.
Scores of our patrons are circling a bonfire and singing Jama songs. Saturday night turned into Sunday morning, filled with dance competitions, quizzes about Ghana, plus fun challenges. Many of them won beautiful wooden fabrics as prizes.
We are finally here at our campsite where our patrons have fun. There's going to be bonfire with Jama session, there'll be cocktail, there'll be barbecue, there'll be movie nights, there'll be dance competition, and a lot of prizes to be won by our patrons. They are pumped up for a lot of fun.
Meet retired librarian and the oldest member of the group, Mary Akofu. She's 74. She's one of the people taking part in the Jama session. She says Joy FM's credibility as a media house is the reason she does not miss any event organized by the station.
When there is news breakout, Joy will be the first. And when you hear news on Joy, it is the truth.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to cross-check before. And because I'm an information officer, I always prefer making sure I pass on information which is correct.
Yeah.
So that is why I like joining Joy FM.
Also here at our campsite is a military man, Lieutenant Colonel Obikran. He decided to surprise his family with the Eastern Camp adventure. He says it was to give them a taste of what he sometimes experiences as a soldier.
Yes. When I had the camping, it has always been my thoughts that I want them to have a feel of the field, how I operate when I tell them that I'm going for a field work. So when I heard about the Eastern camping, I decided to give them the surprise. Then just introduce them to how I operate in the field. So basically that's how come you see us here today with you, Joy FM.
Earlier in the day, I met his children, Tracy, Kayla, and Gabriella, playing Scrabble with another family.
Oh, what are you, Kayla?
I'm 8 years.
8 years. Tell me, what has the experience been like for you so far? Are you having a good time?
Yes.
What was your best place? Was it a waterfall? Was it Konfuanochi's hometown or here? Here's your best place? Oh, wait, what did you do here that got your attention? The food?
No.
Oh, okay.
All the places, it's nice.
Oh, you like the setup? The tents and everything?
Yes.
The first time you're going to sleep in a tent, right?
Yes.
And you like it?
Yes.
Thank you, Kayla. Hello, sir.
It is also a good family bonding time for the Aquas. I caught up with them playing Scrabble.
Nice meeting you too. Most of the time it's business, so I decided to take this weekend with my boys out.
Okay. You're having a good time?
Very, very good time. And I'm teaching them how to play Scrabble.
Oh, I can see that.
No, I'm winning. Look at the scores.
Teacher Ebo, I should call you Teacher Ebo.
Teacher Ebo, these are just one.
Teacher Ebo, teach them for me.
Teaching them.
That's your dad, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so JC,
I've been
schooling
him, so he thinks he's winning, so he's happy.
So Jesse Akko is actually here with his dad, and you're playing a game.
Hey, come on,
you're having a great family time. Hi, sir, what's your name?
I'm Frederick.
Frederick.
Yeah, Aqua.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's your dad.
Yeah, that's my dad.
Oh wow! No, this is family. This is a family.
Boys, to teach them.
Yeah,
they don't know anything. They think they know. So I'm here to teach them. They don't know anything. I'm teaching them.
What you can hear in the background is the water from the waterfalls here at a cinema. We've been visiting the cinema waterfalls, and there's a lot of fun here.
Earlier in the day, the team visited the cinema waterfalls in the birthplace of Konfuanochi, Ukugwa.
Guess who I have here at a cinema waterfall? Malika.
Hey,
Malika.
What's up?
Talk to me, Malika. What's it like here? What's it like here? You having fun?
I'm having fun. I'm having a ball. It's thrilling. I mean, if you are not here, you are missing out. It's what? Joy Camp. And it's really, really Ghana man. And it's thrilling. Thank you so much for this. Yay!
Our patrons are from different and diverse backgrounds. I have here with me Ariel, the wellness coach. Right person to speak to on an adventure like this.
As we are here right now with the things we're seeing, the things we are hearing, the water we are feeling, it's all having an impact on our health. As in, blood pressure can be lowered right now, headaches can clear, people who are not feeling happy, stress is being released. So anytime you unplug from the hustle and bustle of the city and immerse yourself in such experiences, you are actually reversing the negative impact of stress.
10-year-old Emily Latte says she wants Joy FM to organize the adventure every year.
I have my new friend here, Emily. How you doing?
I'm good.
You fine?
Yes.
Great.
I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
It was nice. It's a really good experience. I'm sure maybe has been taking me a picture. I wish to remember that.
Yeah, memorable memories. We've created a lot of memories. We've created a lot of memories here. Let's.
Max, how you doing, brother?
I'm fine. I'm doing well.
So good to see you, brother. Yeah, you're looking good and fly.
Yeah, you having a good time?
Absolutely. Like you can see, sharing a game of cards with some of our good friends here. I mean, the ambiance is great. It's been a good day already. We went to the waterfalls. We went to check out Okugwa, Okonfanosh's hometown. Time to relax a little bit, play a game, get to, bond with our wonderful listeners. It's been amazing so far.
We had some good food and some good drinks,
Absolutely. I had some good banku and an innocent tilapia.